Kai Havertz out. And there's always a risk implicit in those decisions. Sometimes when you make decisions like that, good things happen.
Elsewhere, Wolves climbed out of the relegation zone with a 4-1 win at Fulham. Villa came back twice to draw with Palace, and Everton and Brentford was goalless. Fair play to Andy Murray, who lost 4 Australian Open finals to Novak Djokovic, but will now coach Djokovic at the Australian Open. And in rugby, victory for South Africa in Cardiff was Wales's 12th defeat in a row. Eat your heart out, City.
talkSPORT News.
A man's died after a tree fell on his car in Hampshire as Storm Bert causes havoc across the UK. It's been described as a multi-hazard weather event with heavy rain, snow and winds of up to 70 miles an hour. 10 people had to be rescued from a house in North Wales following a landslide. And Nikita Hand, who accused Conor McGregor of rape and won her case, has been hailed by Ireland's Justice Minister, who's praised her bravery and determination.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Get 10% off 2 or more selected premium tyres in our Black Friday event. Don't miss out and book today at quickfit.com and drive away happy every time. Conditions apply.
Warnings of excessive rain are in place for the whole of the south coast of England, the southwest, parts of the northwest and Wales, all because of Storm Bert.
This is it! The time has come!
Get in the ring and go the distance with Fight Night.
The right hand puts him down!
With Adam Catterall and Gareth A. Davies.
You're better than that!
On talkSPORT, the home of boxing.
What's going on in the world of fight sports? How are you?
I'm very well. We've both been very much global travellers, haven't we? I mean, I was in Texas last week. You were in New York. Everything's really good. I've got a new tipple. It's called Ranch Water.
Ranch Water?
Ranch Water. It's a take on tequila, soda and lime. I went to the rodeo last week with Ed, Romario and Spencer Oliver, our team out there. And we went to Cal Coliseum the night after Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. And it was literally, and we were there for about 10 minutes and we went, do you know what? This is the equivalent. And we got 4 seats together. I had to force it. I had to use all the magic and all the charm to get 4 seats together because it was a sellout. It was like sitting in the York Hall for boxing fans. It was the equivalent. Cal Coliseum.
This is at the rodeo, yeah?
This is at the rodeo in Stockyards. I bought some boots. I didn't bring them in tonight. The weather was too bad for me to wear my new cowboy boots, baby. But we had an amazing time. We did so many different things. I know we'll get into the actual event itself, but I'll tell you what, Houston, Dallas, Austin, all these places, Fort Worth, are amazing places to visit as a tourist. And Stockyards is my new favourite place. And we went there virtually every day to meet the cowboys and the cowgirls. And it was a brilliant place to host that event. Frankly, it was Trump country. It was the heart of Trump country.
Of course.
But one of the highlights was definitely going to the rodeo on the Saturday night.
And the stadium, the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, to host the boxing?
Do you know what? I went wandering at one point before we came on air. I ended up in Jerry Jones's partner's box because I went in through the wrong door.
Of course you did.
They are so
Of course
hospitable.
you did.
Well, they didn't want me to go and broadcast with Ed, Romario and Spencer. They said, no, stay here, man. We want you to stay here. You know what it's like when you go to America. They love us there. And when we're around the fight milieu in whether it be MMA or the UFC or boxing, they love us travelling. And we get doors open, the portals open. I'm sure it was the same in New York.
Yeah. I wasn't in Jerry Jones's blooming private box at Dallas Cowboy Stadium, though, mate.
But I've met Jerry before. When Manny Pacquiao fought Joshua Clottey, they loved the boxing there. There were only 43,000 there for that event in 2009, and it felt empty, Adam. 72,000 there with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders leading them out, and that limousine with Jake Paul, and being around the Toyota Music Factory all week where all the events were. It was amazing. And they're building the first casino in the area because there's no betting in Texas. There's no casino betting. It's all happening out there. It was an amazing week.
We're going to have a debrief on that because obviously the co-main event is something absolutely to get stuck into where Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor went at it for a second time. We will obviously get stuck into that main event as well and how it all played out and what it actually means now for the landscape of boxing with Netflix getting involved in the broadcast of that. I mean, the numbers that have come off the back of last weekend's event in Texas have been astronomical. 60 million people. simultaneously
106 million they've gone
Well,
up
yeah,
to
but-
65 million households, wasn't it? In the end?
Well, simultaneously watching the main event 60 million at one time is
I know.
absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's a record for a broadcaster for sport in America, and that will take you back. I imagine in the days of the 70s and the 60s when they had 3 channels. Then ABC, NBC, I think CBS might have been around then. I can't remember all the channels, but there weren't many when they had the big events on network TV. When George Foreman fought 5 men in a night on ABC in 6 months after he'd lost to Muhammad Ali at the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire, and he fought in Toronto with Howard Cosell presenting it on ABC. That did millions as well. But the biggest figure before this was 22 million in a live broadcast for a Super Bowl playoff game. You'd have thought the Super Bowl would do 50, 100 million.
You think so with America?
Globally, it must do. Because millions get up here to watch it alone.
But 60 million is a ridiculous number, isn't it?
Well, because Mr. Mike Tyson, and we'll get into this in a bit, is one of the most compelling human beings on the planet. And everybody tuned in to find out about him, as was the guy you went to see in New York. Because I remember writing all the stories. Well, we'll get into all of that, won't we? But I remember writing many, many, many articles with Mark Ratner, getting under the commission in New York to get the favour for them to be able to do the events. So it's probably 8 years since they've been
2016 was the first time.
8 years, that's right. We were both there for that one, and it was an amazing event. It was putting the flag in the ground. Finally, they were in New York, and it's always special when the UFC goes to New York, isn't it?
Well, it's never failed to deliver since 2016, and obviously the famous night where Conor McGregor becomes champ, beating Eddie Alvarez. Since then, it's just dished up so many sensational nights. Bisping fought GSP at Madison Square Garden. Then, of course, you've had the more recent ones where the fight of the years, where Michael Chandler, it seems to be, on every single card delivers a fight of the year contender. Last year, of course, it was when Tom Aspinall, our very own Tom Aspinall, beat Sergey Pavlovich to become the interim champion. And this year, it was the greatest of all time. John Jones getting his opportunity after an illustrious career. Never fought at Madison Square Garden. Now gets to tick that off his box. As did the best heavyweight statistically in the UFC in Stipe Miocic. You're laughing, you're smiling. No, I know what you want to ask me about.
No, I don't. I'm not going there yet. No, because something historic also happened during the week, which I loved, because I got a chance to do this when Bellator went there, and I want to say it was Vanderlei and Chael Sonnen we had there. I may be wrong on that, but I got the luck and the love to be able to go up onto the weigh-in stage, because I think you had it for your event.
Yes.
The scales from Ali Frazier from the Fight of the Century.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a picture of me on there. I'm doing this southpaw stance with Scott Coker, and you've got a photo of you.
I've done the same thing. You had to.
I've got mine on my Facebook. It's a beautiful thing to be able. That is one of the greatest fights of all time. One of the most talked about fights. The first $5 million fight. Ali was unbeaten. Frazier was unbeaten. Obviously, Frazier won on the night, but it began that amazing trilogy. And to be able, I just felt the magic. It's a beautiful piece of work, the scales, isn't it?
Yeah.
The long
still
scale.
works.
And it still works, yeah. But they used it for the ceremonial for this event.
For those that
didn't
don't know what Gareth's referring to, so the scales that they use for Ali and Frazier to weigh in, way back when, they still have them at Madison Square Garden, and for the ceremonial weigh-ins for the UFC last week, they brought them out for this iconic event where they were classing it as the GOAT versus the GOAT last weekend, where Jones took on Stipe. So yes, I did have a picture taken alongside those scales. Yes.
And how was New York? How was the week? You had your ups and your downs and your ups and your
always
downs.
do, mate. Always do on these fight weeks. You know what I mean? When you're putting questions to people, you're always going to be in those types of situations. No, I think obviously you're referring to Mr. Jones refusing to sit down with me because of my ties and relationship with Tom Aspinall. And do you know something? Reflecting on it, I think he's well within his rights to absolutely do that. The man's preparing for a fight on a Saturday night. If he doesn't want to have a conversation about, and it wasn't going to be a conversation purely about Tom Aspinall, but it's part of the narrative which John had kind of created himself. I'm of course going to ask whether he's going to continue his career or whether he's going to stop or whether he is actually going to fight Tom Aspinall. That was
and
going
you're
to be
driving it as the home broadcaster
Yes.
for the UK, which you're going to
Of
do
course.
anyway, so you'd have those natural ties.
Listen, I'm not
I
gonna
know
lie.
what it's like with Bisping for years and
Of
years.
course.
I was doing the same.
The questions were going to be there, and if John was in the headspace of, listen, I'm concentrating on the fight, I don't want that in my head, he's well within his right to walk away. And to be fair to him, afterwards he came up to me. He didn't apologise, but he explained the reason as to why he did that. We're all good. we're professionals. At the end of the day, I'm sure there's going to be opportunity down the line where I get to sit with John Jones and celebrate a fantastic career.
It's a very interesting position to be in because you get called a fanboy, don't you?
Of course.
And I do with Tyson Fury, but when you get access to people and you're following their career closely. I remember when I was working with Michael Bisping and he was coming through, and even Dan Hardy, the American journalists, the American broadcasters, and even though I was working sometimes with American broadcasters as well, they see you as the guy that's supporting the guy from over there.
Well, they automatically think that because you're from there, you support them.
Yeah, and in your heart, you want them to do well.
Of course.
But professionally, you're only doing what you're doing because you're given access to those people.
Of course.
You know, it's a fascinating scenario because I was quite plain and simple admitting that Mike Tyson was my guy last week.
Yes.
And that I was praying for him to knock out Jake Paul like 106 million other people that were watching
Yes.
it. But when you're in and out of that in New York, there's a magic dust about Madison Square Garden.
Oh, and this is the
There's
thing.
a magic dust when events go on there.
This is the thing. We are in a really good time right now for the world of boxing where Turki Al-Sheikh is attempting to give us the fights that we all want to see. The majority of those fights are going to Saudi Arabia. And listen, I'm not against that whatsoever. I'm all for it because I'm getting the fights that I want to see. But whatever happens going forward, nothing will ever replace the magic of Madison Square Garden. The history that is in those walls. The city itself is a sensational place to obviously enjoy yourself of an evening. But when it comes to fight night, you're right. You walk up to those hallowed gates and you walk in and you think to yourself, wow, all the things that have happened here from a sporting aspect and an entertainment aspect. You mentioned Ali and Frazier. They walk these corridors and you are sat in that building just seeping in all that history. And then the modern era, especially being an MMA fan, getting MMA into New York, as you rightfully said, has only been there since 2016.
Yeah,
and now
it's campaigned for it for 10 years.
And now it's in Madison Square Garden. It's a massive, massive thing. And it never fails to deliver.
And it also never fails to deliver because the crowd there, boxing and MMA, they don't just love it, Adam. It's not a casual crowd.
No, they
are
know what
so knowledgeable.
They know what they're watching.
That's what I love. And when a boxing match isn't going right, they boo and they scream and they say, "Get him out of here, ref! Get him up! Get him moving!" So you always get action.
You always get action. You know what's going on. Listen, it was a great week. You've had a great week in Texas. We're going to have a full debrief on everything. So coming up a little bit later, Vanessa's going to be in the studio with us to talk about UFC 309. I know the UFC has already played out this weekend because they've been in Macau. So the time difference was this morning. Pierre Yan was brilliant against Davison Figueiredo. We'll give you a debrief on that. And we'll also talk about Chris Billum-Smith, Zerdo last weekend, what that means for the division. Jai Opetaia is going to be on the show because I've no doubt he had one eye on that fight last weekend. So there's lots to come right here on Fight Night. Don't go anywhere.
Right now, pay attention to me. Come here, live exclusive Sunday afternoon championship football
On talkSPORT 2.
Great work!
Swansea versus Leeds.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Build up 2:45 p.m. Kick off at 3 p.m. on talkSPORT 2. 15 minutes. That's not very much build up, is it? It's enough time to put the kettle on and have a brew.
Paul setting the rhythm. And Tyson coming in, burrowing in. Oh, left hook, triple left hook by Paul. He wobbled Tyson.
Mike's hurt.
Declaring your winner by unanimous decision, Jake El Gallo.
Paul setting the rhythm. And Tyson coming in, burrowing in. Oh, left hook, triple left hook by Paul. He wobbled Tyson.
Mike's hurt.
Declaring your winner by unanimous decision, Jake El Gallo.
It's Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall, Guy Davies alongside me. We've got lots to talk about because we haven't been in the studio together for a long period of time. So we'll start with that, shall we? I suppose that was the big talking point last weekend. I know that this is going to irk a lot of boxing fans because we did have a world title fight with Chris Smith attempting to unify against Gilberto Ramirez. Listen, we're going to talk about that as well. We will give you a debrief on that, and we will, of course, give it its own section to Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor because I want to kind of pull that away from that card because that is the super fight. Everybody was into that, no matter whether you were tuning in for the main event or not, you were tuning in for that core main event. So I'm going to take it out of this debrief and we're going to give it its own section, rightfully so. And with that being said, let's get into the main event. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. You were there, so you're the best person to speak about this. I was a person that observed it on Netflix, along with 60 million other people simultaneously. What did you make of it all?
Well, the week's build-up was amazing. We had extraordinary access to Mike through personal friendship with him, but also talkSPORT. We were there all over the place, presenting and digressing and looking into it and wondering. We had Roy Jones Jr. with us at one point. And the funny thing was, from Roy Jones Jr. to other, and obviously he was the last man in the ring with Mike, even though it was an exhibition 2 or 3 years ago, the feeling was from lots of boxing people that Mike would still have too much for Jake Paul if he felt he wanted to do something. Obviously, there's lots of conspiracy theories about it, but I think even hardened journos wrote, when Mike Tyson walked to the ring, it was an extraordinary nostalgia moment for many, many people of different generations. And I'm talking about people in their 80s, I know, were setting their alarm clocks to get up to watch it over here in Europe. It's the last time we'll see Mike Tyson walk to the ring. He's an extraordinary human being. I want to say that there's a wisdom in Mike now that that is a pleasure to behold, and that I think it's fair to say he's been exploited a lot of his life
massively.
As well. And I personally care about him, and I think a lot of people do care about him. And on the fight itself was a veneer. We were seduced by the clips of Mike Tyson. I went, oh damn, when I saw that right knee taped up on the walk in and him almost limping a little bit. You could see his age. You could see that he was slightly stressed by it all. He was fun during the week. He was going to bring the devil himself, not just darkness. And he played that role. He played the skit with his buttocks out after Amir, his son, had interviewed him on Netflix, and they'd had a kiss and Mike walked off. It's like a scene from The Hangover, wasn't it? You know, the biting of the gloves. Mike played his part, but the body won't do what his mind wants him to do anymore. And we all had a flashback moment to when he was 18 and 22, and we wanted him to be that thing again and knock out Jake Paul, who played the ultimate cockerel, if I can call it that, as he wore on the workout. He was playing the villain and the heel all week, and he succeeded in it. In terms of an entertainment event, I know we're going to the undercard in a minute. It was very flat after the first round in that fight because you could see that Mike doesn't have it anymore. And then Jake Paul won every round after that, if not the first round. I gave Mike Tyson the first round. I was scoring it. Spencer and I were doing commentary, but it did feel very flat. So it was amazing up until really midway through the first round when you realised that Mike wasn't going to be able to do what we wanted him to do.
I'll give you my thoughts in a minute. I want to hear from Jake Paul, because I know that you caught up with him in the immediate aftermath of last weekend's main event. So here he is. Here's Jake Paul speaking to Gareth A. Davies.
Congratulations, brother. How are you doing?
Thank you,
feel
brother.
good?
Yeah, feeling really good, man. The little kid version of me would be just so happy right now and just so proud of what I accomplished.
You dreamt it into existence.
Yes, manifestation is real. Ayahuasca can change and help people, and God is real.
Can you do Canelo or not?
Yeah, let's do it, bro. That's what everyone wants to see. I want a bigger challenge.
Right, okay, wow. Here's my thoughts on it, right? Going into the event, I think any knowledgeable boxing fan knew kind of what they were going to get. They know that they're not watching elite sport, okay?
But Roy Jones Jr. is a knowledgeable boxing fan. He got it wrong as well.
What do you mean?
He thought that Jake Paul wouldn't be able to live with Mike Tyson if he decided.
Well, he shouldn't be. Listen, there's many questions. We got Nikisa on a little later on, right? And I'll ask him some straightforward questions and see where we get to it. But going into it, you know you're not watching elite level sport, and the reason
that's true.
The reason why you come to that conclusion is because Mike Tyson's 58. Okay, so therefore he's not performing like he is in his early 20s. And with all due respect to Jake Paul, he is at a certain level. All right. So you kind of think to yourself, from voyeuristic eyes, if you're going to tune into this, you want to be entertained in some way, shape or form. You want to see the old shadows of Mike Tyson just a little bit, gives a little glimpse of it. Maybe he does land that shot. Maybe he ends up getting splattered. Whatever. We're all into watching some sort of fight. But you know what you're kind of watching?
It's an exhibition.
Well, we're told that
That's
it's
what
not.
It looked like.
We're told
That's
that it's
what it
not. We're
looked
told
like.
that it's obviously a professional sanctioned boxing clash, right? There's that element of jeopardy signposted to it, even though you know that it's not elite. You want entertainment. I come away from it, as you've just said, you used the word flat there. I think flat's the correct word, because it was far from entertaining. If anything, it was really poor. You've just said, the first round, you have a little bit of a look, and then after that, it's absolutely, what are we watching? This is nowhere near.
Well, you didn't want to see Mike Tyson get hurt, frankly. He took 78 punches too many, in my view.
But was there any danger in that? With all due respect, when you watch it, right, you've got Mike Tyson getting into range with his feet and pulling shots. He didn't throw shots. He didn't throw anything, did he? And then you've got Jake Paul.
Are you suggesting he deliberately wasn't?
Yeah, I am suggesting
I don't
this.
agree with that.
And then I'm looking at Jake Paul, who's a 20-odd-year-old fella. He's got a stationary target sat in front of him.
And he didn't let his
And he
hands
doesn't
go.
hit it.
He didn't.
So,
he did 78 times.
But if he had anything about him, would he not have taken it out?
That's a lose-lose. I think he realised.
Well, then that's conning the audience, isn't it? You've told him that you're getting a proper professional fight.
Yeah.
You get in a fight. Come and watch a fight.
Yeah,
we didn't watch a fight.
The event was a spectacle, but the fight didn't deliver, and it didn't deliver because it is a mismatch when you put a 58-year-old man in with a 27-year-old man, and one who was once a great, an all-time great, and one who is a neophyte. And you're right in your assessment. There is an element of, as I say, I'm using the word seduction about it, because in many ways my belief is I like the eyeballs on the sport, because you're talking from a boxing purist's
I'm talking from a sport point of view.
Well, from a
there's a commercial angle which is very successful.
Yeah, and it will continue to be. It will continue to be very successful commercially.
I mean, when you look at the numbers commercially, I mean, 60 million views simultaneously for that just main event. I think Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano did 50 million. So you've just rightfully said, retrospective views are over 100 million people have tuned in some way, shape or form to that event.
And my understanding is that Netflix, this is what my assessment of it is. I think Netflix probably made about 200 million, if not more.
Their stockers, that absolutely risen.
Because if you're paying $10.99 and it's new subscribers, you only need 1 million new subscribers, and sorry, that takes it into whatever that is. To 1 million new subscribers is $100 million dollars. So if they had 2 million new subscribers for this, and
commercially, it's been a massive success. I mean, if you look at the Gate, they've done 18 million on the Gate, which in US fight sports history on the Gate, they're in the top 10.
And they're just behind Fury and Wilder.
Which is ridiculous.
The record for Fury.
70,000 people have bought a ticket.
And twice as much money as Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders at the same stadium 4 years ago.
My problem is
3 years ago.
Right. So here's something for you, right? At the end, when we just heard you speak to him at the end there, and I know that you spoke to his brother about the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned Canelo for him. Why have you mentioned Canelo?
Because
for
he
him?
was talking about fighting Canelo next all week. He's serious about it. He is definitely.
Yeah, but we don't have to be because we know that that's a farce.
Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but maybe at cruiserweight. No, to sit down on Tuesday, he said, when I beat Mike Tyson, I want to fight one of the greats in this era. That's my ambition. And I don't want to hold him back because I think even though he plays the villain at the moment, he's playing the heel because that's his way of garnering eyes, and he knows that route that most people will tune in again against Canelo if that fight's made. They will tune in to see him get knocked out, and he may get stopped. It may be the end game.
There's no maybe. If it's a proper fight, there's no maybe about that.
Well,
if it's a proper fight, there's no maybe about it. Canelo will absolutely hurt him.
But can you see Canelo saying yes to that fight if he's going to earn, say, $150 million US?
But what? Right?
Can you say him saying yes to it?
Individuals, Jake Paul and Canelo, absolutely, I can see him chasing money.
And therefore,
listen,
it will
I've seen a guy that holds a heavyweight championship belt this week call him out. I've seen the undisputed light heavyweight championship.
Artur Beterbiev
call him
and
out.
Daniel. Why are they doing it?
Because they're chasing money. Because boxing is full of people that are looking for the easiest amount of work for the most amount of money.
And they should be. And that's not a problem.
No
because
problem with
if it works commercially, that's fine in my
No problem
view.
with it whatsoever. But then the sport has to stand up and say, hang on a minute, what are we doing here, right? You cannot put the kid off the Disney Channel in with the undisputed...
Well, he's no longer the kid off the Disney Channel.
Come on, Gareth, listen.
So
listen
he wants to go into the Olympics in 2028
well, he's
as
dreaming.
well.
He's dreaming. Listen to this.
I can see it happening.
Listen to it, right. Answer me this question. Would Tommy Fury win a British title?
He could.
No. Give me your professional opinion.
No, I think he could. He's capable of winning a British
title. My opinion
title.
is that he wouldn't, right?
Okay.
My opinion is that Tommy Fury would not hit British level, right? Jake Paul's fought Tommy Fury
I think
and
that's
lost.
very unfair of you.
No, that's
I
my
think
opinion.
He's a young fighter and he's got a lot of learning to do.
There's a reason why Tommy Fury's gone off to Misfits. Because there's more money and more opportunity for him over there.
It's a sport as well as a business, and he's gone to the business side of it.
Of course. Right. So if he genuinely believed that he could go through and become British, European, world champion, he would be on that path because of the stock that he's from. There's a disbelief there of him being able to do that. So, in my opinion, I think he would struggle to become a British champion, which is a very prestigious thing to do, right? We all agree on that. Jake Paul fell short at beating Tommy Fury. So, you're now wanting to put a guy that has fallen short at that level in with Canelo.
Yeah. Who's a middleweight.
He'd still get hurt.
Or a super middleweight at the moment.
He'd still get hurt. Do you not think he'd get hurt?
We don't know.
Come on.
We don't know.
The sport has to stand up and stop that. You
no,
can't
the sport
sanction
can't
that.
stand up and stop anything. We are not in a position to stand up and stop anything. You can't forbid Canelo going in the ring with Jake Paul.
No, but the sport can say, well, we're not sanctioning it. You can do what you want, lads. Crack on.
But then they'll do it unlicensed, won't they?
Well, let them crack on with that. But the sport can't be involved in that.
So what you're saying is, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but if the sport doesn't want to license it, then that's fine. But that's not how the sport is, Adam, and you know that. I'm talking with a promoter's hat on. I'm not talking from what I want. I'm talking from what will happen. And I can't say that ain't going to happen because because 6 years ago or 7 years ago, when Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fought each other, everybody embraced it because but
it was new and fresh then.
It was new and fresh, and I played a part.
You played a major part
in pushing that fight on BT Sport, TNT Sport it is now.
Yeah.
Interviewing Conor McGregor about it and John Kavanagh about it, who were like, "Let's do it. Show me the money." Whereas the agent, Audiatar, who embraced it eventually, was saying, "Well, I don't think it's going to work." It grossed, was it 500 million, 600
It was silly
million?
money.
Because it was so compelling, and I do agree with what you'll say about it. Yeah, but it was two combat artists who are the top of their profession at the time and the brilliant marketeers that they were. The problem we have is that when something works commercially, it will always happen in fight sports.
And you're probably right. But it doesn't mean that the sport has to dance to that tune, does it?
I don't disagree with that either.
Stick with us. We're going to keep talking about this throughout the course of the night, and you're welcome to come and join us as well. 03717 22 3344. This is Fight Night.
Great Scott! It's 2024 and you're still tuning in on your radio? Don't you know a vastly superior transmission device has been invented? If you're going to listen to talkSPORT, why not do it with some style? By stepping into the future and downloading the talkSPORT app with fully modernized sound quality and access to a digital library of so-called podcasts. It'll blow your mind. So come on, future boy, witness the progress of mankind. Where we're going, we don't need aerials. Download the app today and listen online.
It's Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall. Gareth A. Davies is alongside me. Lots to come on the show. Gareth's been catching up with Conor Benn. You're going to hear from him in the next half an hour, so make sure you stick around for that. Right now, like I said, I wanted to just remove the co-main event from Texas away from everything else that happened on that card, just to give it its own gravitas, because I just thought, as a fight, it's up there with one of the very best fights that you can talk about in boxing. Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor going at it for a second time. The first time was obviously historic in Madison Square Garden, and it was absolutely brilliant. Katie getting a hand raised on that evening, and she got a hand raised again last week in Texas, beating Amanda Serrano over 10 rounds. These two girls are just... wow, I take my hat off every single time I watch them fight, but when they fight each other, their styles just mix so beautifully. And at times, they give us round of the year contenders, fight of the year moments. It must have been awesome to be in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Think about this, right? A women's undisputed title fight. 70,000 people are in the arena cheering these two on. 50 million for their particular fight around the world, simultaneously watching it. Absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely. Just full disclosure, first of all, I had Amanda Serrano winning. I've never seen as bad a cut go on for 4 rounds, although... just to give a little bit of credit, obviously, to Amanda Serrano, but also to the referee and the ringside physician, it wasn't pouring blood. So her main capillary hadn't opened, even though it looked like a pair of lips on her eyebrow, didn't it? It was that big.
It's about one.
Spencer Oliver and myself, who were commentating at the time or doing a vague kind of watch-along, we were screaming, horrendous, get this thing stopped, because it was frightening how open it was. Certainly by the 6th round, I thought Serrano was extraordinary on the night, but Katie has the devil in her herself. I know she's a very religious person. I shouldn't really say that about her, but boy, she's got the devil when she fights. And when she saw that cut open in the 5th round, she really came back in the fight. Very, very close. The judges all had it 94 with a point deduction for coming in with the head. I think it's the way she fights. She tears in. I don't think she's a deliberately dirty fighter.
No,
but
it's a style.
She isn't by any means necessary kind of warrior when she's involved in there. Like you say, the projection for women's boxing, you couldn't get 2 better styles.
Brilliant.
And a matchup to project the very elite women's level. They're both nailed down Hall of Famers. They are both beautiful people to be around in a fight week. They haven't got a bad word to say about each other. And Amanda even retracted the comments within hours that Katie had deliberately used her head. I've spoken, without going on too much, because I can hear my excitement about it. I've heard that they are working on a trilogy, by the way. Spoke to Katie's manager, Brian Peters, this week, and they are talking about doing a trilogy at some point, and it's merited as well. And it'll probably be on the undercard of Jake Paul's next fight.
Stop it. Listen, I've got a few thoughts on that, but before we get those thoughts, let's hear from Katie herself, right? Because in the aftermath of a victory over Amanda Serrano last weekend, Gareth, who was in the stadium, caught up with her.
Many congratulations, Katie. Wow, that was a war. How do you keep doing this?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I just I had to dig deep there again tonight, but I'm so happy to get another win and another amazing night live on Netflix, another monumental moment, so I'm just so happy.
You seem to have a difficult early part of the fight. Her eye got cut, you got a point deducted. There was so much drama in there. You were clearly targeting the eye when it was cut. It looked like you red rag to a bull. But my word, how do you assess the fight when you look back on it?
Well, it's very fresh right now, but I have to obviously look back and look at the video, but I feel like I landed the bigger shots at the second half of the fight. I feel like my inside work was very good tonight. That's what won me the fight in the end. it just took a lot of heart and grit in there tonight, and I got the job done again.
You did. You got a unanimous decision. You got a better result than last time. You said in the week you didn't want to go to the judges. As it was being read out, did you feel it was yours?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how the fight was going to go, but then it's such a close fight. But all the judges were in agreement, and I was happy with that.
Can you do it again with her for 10 more rounds? Croke Park, maybe? You've come over here twice.
Yeah.
How about you? I mean, I've been crying for Croke Park for years. Yeah. Could you do that?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've beat her twice now, so is there any need for a trilogy? But if she wants a third fight, I can absolutely give it to her again.
Is it time to stop, or is that fire still burning in you?
I'm going to have to make that decision obviously in the next few days or so, but I love my sport, I love my boxing, and tonight was a great night, but I do feel like I have even maybe 1 or 2 more fights in me.
And the sport absolutely loves her because every single time she turns up and puts on a show, she's absolutely in the conversation for the greatest fighter of all time. The accolades speak for themselves, both amateur and professional. And these 2 fights that she's had so far with Amanda Serrano have been absolutely captivating. I do feel a little bit for Amanda Serrano because she's given 20 rounds with Katie Taylor and she's come up on the wrong side of 2 decisions. I actually had the first fight scored a draw, and I scored this fight 95-94 in favour of Amanda Serrano.
I don't disagree with you.
I thought that the point off swayed in her favour, but I do not. I'm not going to argue and rage on about Katie getting a hand raised because there's a couple of rounds in there that are very, very tight. There's some clean work in there from Katie, and if you've got it 6-4 in her favour,
exactly,
no problem
exactly.
whatsoever.
You can easily score it 5-5, 6-4 one way or 6-4 the other,
so.
and the judges scored it 6-4 with a point deduction, which makes it 95-94 to Katie.
Yeah.
But all 3 had the same result.
I've no problem with it.
And then she got the result away from home. What I thought was fascinating, Ed, was that she still wants 2 more fights.
Right.
And so maybe that's a Cameron trilogy.
Right. I'll tell you what should happen. Are you ready?
Go on.
Right. So Katie Taylor's going in the Hall of Fame. No question about that, right? But what I think that she could do now is really pass the torch on to the next generation. Given the style and the way that the fights have played out, and okay, she's 2-0. We know that she's 2-0. But because of the way that the fights played out, I honestly think that there is worth in a 3rd fight with Amanda Serrano. The styles just work perfectly. And I also think that your suggestion of Croke Park, that's the fight. If you can get her to Croke Park, absolutely make that happen. She's gone to MSG, she's gone to Texas. Let's bring her back to Croke Park and make that happen. You know where I'm going with this. Yep. I genuinely believe that they could do 10, I'll say 10, rather than go the full hog, 10 3-minute rounds. I think they could really push it to 3-minute rounds because...
She won't do it.
I'm not saying that she will, but what I'm saying is Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor are the best of the best. There's only a handful of fighters that I would make this argument for. I put Clarissa Shields into this. You mentioned Chantel Cameron. Fighters like that, I would make that argument because I don't think the talent pool is deep enough for the other girls, and this is no disrespect to them, to be able to do what I'm asking them to do. But I think if we want parity, if we want to push this thing even further forward, we've got to get to a situation where female fighters are fighting 3-minute rounds. The reason why I bang on about this so much is because I watch a lot of MMA, and maybe I'm a little bit discombobulated with it. The females fight 5-minute rounds just like the blokes. And when it comes to championship fights, they fight 5 rounds like the blokes do.
Well, why don't we make MMA 3-minute rounds then?
What do you mean? Why would you bring it down? Because you have 3 rounds. So you have 15 minutes, don't you?
Why not have 5 3s in MMA?
Well, you could mix it up if you wanted to.
I think that would be good as well.
Well, I'm all right with the MMA rule set at the moment, so we'll just leave that as it is.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I know you are. But regarding the elite female fighters, and these 2 are, what I don't want, when Katie retires, right, what I don't want in 5 years, 10 years' time, when people are looking back at the Katie Taylor story, I don't want them to say, yeah, but she didn't do 3-minute rounds, did she? But I don't want them to do that. I would love her to say, right, go on then, we'll do a 3-minute and we'll do it against Amanda Serrano.
But be physically fair here, because what you're asking them to do is to go from 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's go 8 3s in my view.
Fine.
Rather than
just do the 3 minutes.
Rather than 10 3s.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you, because I think, you know, in terms of...
I also think 2-minute rounds are very difficult to score, mate.
Oh,
they're very difficult to score.
I agree with that, and that's why we have so many close fights. And the 2 Chantel Cameron fights with Katie have been very close, as were the Delphine Pursoon fights
8 threes. I'll take 8 threes.
Yeah, no, because I think to get them to another 10 minutes is big. But with my crystal ball and quite a lot of knowledge in the background around what's happening with Katie and Amanda from being there and being around the teams and knowing them, the Croke Park fight, we had Alicia Baumgardner, who was in one of the fight hotels, who was out there for the event. I had her on talkSPORT with us on Saturday night, because this was a Friday night event. And Alicia is a good opponent for Katie as well, by the way. I think stylistically, obviously she's a super featherweight champion, but I think the Amanda Serrano trilogy probably won't be at Croke Park because they'll want to go under the umbrella of most valuable promotion. So I think that trilogy is likely on the next Jake Paul fight. But if there is, and if he is fighting in the summer and Katie wants to fight before, I think that's the time to do someone else, be
Chantel.
it
She's one-on-one with Chantel,
or a Jonas or whoever it is. But for some reason, and maybe it's because of the physicality of Chantel Cameron, they don't seem as keen on that fight, even though in the second fight I thought she was absolutely brilliant. She makes adjustments so well.
Listen, she's one of the very, very best to have ever laced.
I think she's the greatest.
I think it's between her and Clarissa.
When you look at the talent pool that she's had to fight,
yeah, that's fair.
As opposed
she's beaten
to
better level of opponent. You're right.
And I don't want to disrespect Clarissa.
No,
she is extraordinary. Double Olympic champion,
yeah,
and all the things she's achieved, all the way up to heavyweight right now as well.
Yeah. I think it's between those two for the greatest female fighter of all time, no doubt about it. But with what you just said about the depth of person that they're beating, listen, we've got to take into consideration Amanda Serrano's a featherweight. I mean, she's jumped up 3 weights there to have that fight. That's ridiculous.
I'm glad you said that as well, because this is a woman who's come up 6 weight divisions, and it is extraordinary. I mean, they are just they are the very best of the very best.
This is why I think they can make groundbreaking moves with the 3-minute rounds. I really do.
Absolutely.
Stick with us. There's been a lot going on. We are going to talk about Zerdo Ramirez and Chris Billam-Smith from last weekend. We'll debrief that. But Conor Benn's been catching up with Gareth Ed Davies. We're going to hear from him next.
Fight Night with Adam Catterall and Gareth A. Davies on talkSPORT, the home of boxing.
Funky tunes tonight, innit, eh? We're at the disco. You are listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. Hope you are well. Thank you very much for your company. Getting stuck into all the big fight sports topics. Lots of guests still to come between now and the end of the programme. Make sure you stick around for that. Right now, though, time to hear from Conor Benn, because Gareth has been catching up with Conor Benn this week. He revealed that his next opponent is set to be either Chris Eubank or Mario Barrios.
We're in talks with Barrios for the WBC World title, which is, if there's anything that's going to make me pick over the Eubank fight, it would be the WBC World title.
Do you think he looked good the other night against Ramos? It was a great fight. But Ramos came back into it, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he looked great. I don't think Barrios looked great. He's a great fighter, tough Mexican, but I don't think he looked great. I think he's built for me. You know, he will come out firing. I feel rejuvenated, full of life. You remember the fights in Florida, the fight in Vegas. I've said to Tony, I don't even know if I want to fight anymore. That was me at that stage. I'm not sure if I wanted to fight. I didn't want to fight, to be honest with you, but discipline got me through. You know, it wasn't about motivation. I was the most unmotivated geezer going. It wasn't about motivation, it was just about discipline. And I've shown more discipline and work ethic and ambition in the past 2 years than I have done my whole career. It's staying ready, staying in the gym, irrelevant of what people are saying, irrelevant of this getting pulled, my own people playing in my heart black. I stayed in the gym so that you are cleared of any wrongdoing moment, which I've just had. I'm ready to go. So I feel like I'm full of life, ready to take what's mine. I feel like I've missed out on a lot over the past 2 years.
A lot of people are going to be screaming for the Eubank fight, though. Is that burning inside you?
Yeah, because I want to smash his head in. Personally, that's the reality. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but that's the reality. You don't rub salt in my wounds. You know, never kick a man when he's down. Or if you do kick me when I'm down, you best make sure the job gets done. If not, we get back up and you're in trouble. And that's how I feel.
And tell me about your dad giving an interview with Simon Jordan the other day, saying, yeah, you're laughing because you know what I'm going to ask, saying he'd quite like the trilogy with Eubank Sr.
Stop it.
He said he'd like to fight. He said he's still ready to go.
I mean, no. He's ready to go, but I don't want to see my dad in there. I just don't want to see my dad in there.
What about... Well, a similar age man. We watched Mike Tyson and Jake Paul the other day. What did you make of that?
I think it was the best money grab in boxing history. You got to rate the man. You got to rate Jake Paul for where he's come from and what he's done. What, he's got unified world champions calling him out.
Daniel Dubois. Artur Beterbiev.
Marketing, he's a marketing genius.
They're seeing the magnet, aren't they?
If what fighters need to do is take a leaf out of Jake Paul's book, not go, why is he getting paid this, why is he getting paid that? The reality is, if you understand marketing, you can make fortunes. Why is he getting paid that? Because he knows his clientele. He knows his viewers. So you got to look at him and go, fair play to you. Still doing the hardest sport in the world, bear in mind. You still got to get in there. You still got to face that fear of what if I get knocked out. Most people can't handle that. Let alone a YouTuber who's not who's not bred like we are. You know, so you got to take your hat off to him for doing what he done. It was sad to watch for Mike Tyson. But you think Mike Tyson's, upset about getting 10, 20 mil in the bank? No, he's having a
He was the
time.
A+++ side in that event.
But that's kids.
I know people in their 80s that were setting their alarm clocks to get up as well.
Yeah, but that's kids who are going, Jake Paul, Tyson's going to win it because he's this... The reality is, anyone with any boxing brain or any common sense would go, mind you, I've spoken to a lot of people with common sense and boxing brain who've gone, Mike's going to win.
I know.
So actually, no, I completely take that back, because I've spoken to a good few friends of mine. They're like, Mike's just got out. I've gone, mate,
It's a young man's game.
Yeah.
Father time or grandfather time waits for no one.
Yeah, it ain't happening, so... Yeah, no, my dad can just be in my corner. My dad will be in my corner. My dad will be sitting next to me at the press conference, providing the Eubank fight does happen.
I think it might kick off between those two, because Chris Eubank said he's reconciling and wants to reconcile with his dad. Got to have the two dads involved as well.
You can't not have Eubank Senior there.
Yeah.
Me and Eubank are fighting because of the old men. The fight is what it is because of the old men.
Family legacy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, how can you not have your dad there? He's your blood.
Conor, Benn, catching up with you a little earlier on this week. Where was that at?
That was at City Social, London. Beautiful restaurant with the chefs Jason Atherton and Paul Walsh. And it was the launch, by the way, of Huge Boxing that we hope may well be on talkSPORT. Charlie Sims is now a promoter. Tony Sims was there. Spoke to Tony as well. He said very much the same things as Conor. Huge Boxing's going to launch on December the 14th. Origins, it's called. George Lydiard, they've got a big heavyweight. Conor's going to do presentation and commentary. I'm hoping to work alongside him. Hopefully we'll have a relationship with them with talkSPORT as well. I love all these kind of small promotions springing up right now. Origins, Legacy, New Dawn, they're calling it. Charlie's a very creative guy. He's got this, been in Hollywood for 2 years doing a series over there. He was on Towie, of course. He knows what he's doing. But the Conor Benn thing's very interesting.
Listen, of course it's interesting, and I know that there's a situation. Is it this week where the
3 more days for
UKAD have got
3 more days to launch their appeal
if they're going to launch an appeal? And I know that they obviously did that the first time around. I imagine that the conversation is pretty difficult when you're sat with him, given the context of where we're currently at with the UKAD scenario, right? So people will fully understand that the second provisional suspension was lifted a couple of weeks ago, and UKAD / British Boxing Board of Control have a period of time, 21 days I think it was, wasn't it, in order to appeal that decision. And we have just announced that will be at some point this week.
Wednesday, I think.
This is my take on this, and I don't know whether you know more than me on this situation, seeing as that you've rebuilt those bridges with him. We are still none the wiser regarding the scenario of the 2 failed tests from 2 years ago. My questions to him would be, if I ever get this opportunity, would be, how did clomiphene get in his system? Why was the second provisional suspension lifted? And we've seen from the statement with UK anti-doping that they're not allowed to speak about anything publicly as of yet, unless Conor Benn gives them permission. Will he give them permission to do that in order for us all to have complete transparency with the scenario? Do you envisage a situation where we will actually have full clarity of the situation?
Knowing a little bit more from this week and in the past, I think there is paperwork 3 feet high that I've mired this in a lot of complexity involving UKAD's decisions, what the Boxing Board of Control have done, the route that Conor Benn's lawyers have taken, things that Eddie Hearn has said, things that maybe VADA have made an admission on. I can't go into all the detail right now because I don't have the full evidence of it in front of me, that I think come Wednesday, we may well see Conor Benn applying for his new licence again. I think the trouble is a lot of it is sub judice, and it is mired in legal matter. But like you say, it would be lovely to have full transparency and visibility on it all, because in a sense, Conor doesn't have to move forward saying, this is the scenario, but I can't tell you all the details in public, because he's been through a very difficult time. He's still emotional about it. He's desperate to get in there and fight again under the auspices of the British Boxing Board of Control licence. And like you say, it's one of the messy... I cannot remember a messier scenario that we have discussed in depth for 2.5 years.
My production team are yelling at me to go to a break. He's just said a lot of stuff that I want to ask him about. Are you taking the mick? Are you taking the mick? I've got to go to a break. Stick with us, it's fight night.
on 1089 and 1053 medium wave.
Online,
On your mobile,
on the app.
and on your smart speaker. Just say November.
Talk Sport. Talk Sport.
It's 2 minutes past 10 on talk Sport. The station would like to apologise to Jack, who called into O'Hara and Cundy just before 7:30 this evening and got rudely interrupted.
I sent you a cracking video.
Oh, it's more, Jack! It's more, Mickey Gray!
You're getting whooped!
Oh my goodness, Manchester City 0, Tottenham 4.
That's how it finished as well. Poor City.
The first time they've lost 3 league games since 2016. 34 home league games without defeat, now gone.
City fan James got out of there and didn't even see Brennan Johnson's goal.
I have left the ground and I hate myself for it, but Kyle Walker's gone. Rico Lewis is not good enough to play in the Premier League. He's pony.
So, why is it all going wrong?
It's for many reasons. I would like to tell you just one reason. There are many, few details for all the season.
From Spurs' point of view, Ange reckons it was a complete performance.
We did everything we needed to today. We defended when we needed to. We worked hard, we were disciplined, and some of our football was outstanding.
So Liverpool could go 8 points clear tomorrow, and Chelsea, Arsenal and Brighton are now just a point behind City after they all won today. Steve Cooper was fuming with referee Andy Madley for denying Leicester a penalty against Chelsea.
We had it at Palace as well for the VAR, I won't say anything that's going to get me into trouble.
Elsewhere, Wolves won 4-1 at Fulham. It was a stalemate between Everton and Brentford, and Villa and Palace drew 2-2. Andy Murray says he's really excited after agreeing to coach Novak Djokovic at the Australian Open. And in rugby, Wales's torrid time continued with a 45-12 defeat to South Africa.
Talk Sport. News.
A man in his 60s has died after a tree fell on his car near Winchester. It comes as Storm Bert sweeps the UK and Ireland, bringing strong winds, rain and snow. Winds of up to 70 miles an hour have left thousands of homes without power. And representatives of dozens of developing nations have stormed out of climate negotiations at COP29 after dismissing an offer of £250 billion a year to help them tackle climate change. The talks in Azerbaijan were due to finish yesterday.
Talk Sport weather with QuickFit. For a limited time only, get 15% off a set of 4 selected premium tyres in our Black Friday event. Don't miss out and book today at quickfit.com and drive away happy every time. Conditions apply.
Flood warnings and alerts are in place in England, Scotland and Wales because of Storm Bert.
Online, DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Get in the ring and go the distance with Fight Night.
The fight starts now.
With Adam Catterall and Gareth A. Davies.
I don't think he's going to get up.
On Talk Sport, the home of boxing.
A little bit of a say on that. But just before the break, you will have heard us talking about the Conor Benn situation. Conor Benn speaking with Gareth A. Davies this week about what could happen next for him. Obviously, he's talking about the Eubank fight, and this week is a big week regarding UK anti-doping and whether they are going to appeal the second provisional suspension being uplifted a few weeks ago. I just want to pick up on you were just saying there, and I don't want to get you into too much hot water at the moment because I know that you know stuff that can't be actually spoken about publicly.
I think, yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully that information is going to come out this week and therefore there'll be a little bit more clarity. What I will say is this. So Conor Benn has mentioned again there in the conversation with yourself, and he's mentioned it on a couple of occasions previously, especially in his statement in the immediate aftermath of the second provisional suspension being lifted, that he has been cleared of any wrongdoing. Now, my take on that is that the only way that you can be cleared of any wrongdoing is if clomiphene was never in the man's system in the first place. I've been very, very vocal on strict liability, especially when it comes to UK anti-doping rules. And what, as I've just said to Gareth, is that what I want to know is if clomiphene was in his system, how did clomiphene get into his system? We're 2.5 years down the line, and we're no further down the line with knowing the facts regarding that scenario. How was the second provisional suspension lifted, and will there be clarity going forward? Will we find out more information from UK anti-doping regarding the ins and outs of the whole case? I think boxing fans need that for transparency. I think Conor Benn needs that for transparency, and therefore the lad then, once that is out there in the open, people can make their own minds up, and he can then, obviously, as you've just said, apply for a British Boxing Board of Control licence, because I think if he's going to fight again, I think the real worth and commercial value for him is to fight on British soil. I don't think there's too much commercial value as of yet away from home. I think a fight with him and Eubank Jr. in Great Britain is where it does the most amount of eyeballs and money.
All fantastic. And in the break, you and I were speaking, and I think you rightly point out, and this is what we need to, we're going to talk about the state of boxing. One of the things in boxing that needs to move forward, you put it beautifully, you didn't say it there, I was waiting for you to say it, which is we need a drug testing system that isn't broken and that you can navigate your way around.
Of course.
Confuses everyone, and it has confused everyone over the last 2 years. I think more will come out. I think eventually it will come out. There's an openness and an honesty about Conor Benn. I've known him a long time. When you're with him, where he just wants to tell you it all. So I think it will come out eventually. Rather like, my feeling is, if it does get over the line on Wednesday in his favour, and there is no appeal, and as you say, it isn't rescinded again by UKAD, and they go back to an appeal, I think the 2 fights, if he gets a British licence, will be in the UK. And I think it's going to be a 2-fight deal with Chris Eubank, I believe. And they're looking at the 2 biggest stadiums in the country, in inverted commas. And for me, that means Tottenham Hotspur, where we've had big fights already, and Wembley Stadium. And in a way, and I know the but. In a way, we need some clarity to go into that. And I agree with you. There you
go. Will we get that? Do you? I mean, listen, you've spoken to him, and you've spoken to him on a couple of occasions. Do you think we will get that clarity? Because I think fans need that clarity.
Yeah.
It's been a mess for such a long period of time. Do you think we'll get it?
I do, because he's very hurt by it. You could still feel the emotional in his voice and in his being when we stood at the City Social.
But you're speaking now, right? That you've been speaking to a man that feels that he has been done wrong to, right?
Well, I think he does.
Right then, okay.
In the way it's been.
So
handled,
if he can prove that he has been done wrong to, will we get to know that? And if we do get to know that, what's his actions of it? Because as I've just said 2 minutes ago, right? The only way that he can, in my opinion, the only way that he can be cleared of any wrongdoing is if it was never in his system in the first place. If it was never in his system in the first place, there is a flaw in the testing system. And therefore the testing system and the people that took those tests absolutely need to be dragged over the coals. Because if it wasn't in his system, 2 and a bit years of his career has been flushed down the pan.
Well, I think, you know, you might be hitting the buttons on the head there.
Okay. Well, hopefully this information comes out.
Yeah.
Well, if it doesn't come out, then obviously from a fan point of view, then it just gets murkier and murkier and murkier, and he's the person that's going to get blamed.
He said it the whole way along. Honestly, I'm not a drug cheat, and I've never intended to cheat, and I never would. He brought in his own religious faith as well into it. You know, and every time I'm around him, he is very, very compelling. Very compelling.
I get that.
So,
but at the moment, the science is pointing to the fact that he's failed 2 tests. That's what the science is pointing towards.
Yeah.
And all I want to know is, how did you fail those 2 tests?
Exactly, and I think they've been through the mill on it, and I think we'll find out on Wednesday that in my understanding of it, we don't know absolutely, because we don't know the machinations of how UKAD works, and they appealed literally at the 11th hour before midnight the last time to bring back the suspension against him. So who knows what's going to happen this week? It's a very, very detailed and difficult thing to deeply understand. And like you say, the best thing that could possibly happen, but it might lead to more conflict and more attrition between everyone involved. If it comes to light exactly what's happened, then it might throw I think we need the whole testing system in boxing looked at and homogenous. We've said this many times.
Yes.
All the countries in the world under one system, one testing. If there are problems in the lab, certain labs, and it policed properly. Because who knows how well it's all policed as well. Well, we don't. There are, and at the end of the day, here's the bottom line: we have to have it policed properly, because it's an inherently dangerous sport, We care about all our fighters, and fighters need to know. I see Sonny Edwards come out today and said, have no testing, because that's the only fair way to do it. And then, no, but that's what he came out with today. He did in an interview. But that's not right. We need to police it, because you cannot use your body as a weapon against someone else if you enhance it illegally. And that is there's a reason for that. It's not tiddlywinks. It's not 100-metre sprint. It's not swimming. It's punching someone in the body to try and render them unconscious, and you can legally die in the ring. That's why it's so important.
Listen, boxing, every single week when we're speaking about various things in this sport, it brings up loads of different conversations. We've seen this week Oliver McCall, he stepped back in the ring in his late 50s, fighting another fella in his mid-50s, and now he's called out Jake Paul. I've seen champions in this game calling out Jake Paul this week. I've seen Tommy Fury and Darren Till having a little bit of a tete-a-tete up in...
a little one?
Well, they had a little bit of a go, didn't they? And they're going to have a little bit of a rumble in January. You've got... I mean, we've just been speaking about Conor, Ben. Part of your conversation there was his dad, Nigel. He sat down with Simon Jordan this week, insinuating that he fancies a third one with Chris Eubanks Sr. The landscape of boxing is a little bit all over the place. Steve, you're a boxing fan. What do you make of the boxing landscape at the moment, mate?
Thanks for having me on. Great show as always, guys.
Cheers, buddy.
Well, as far as this year's gone, I think the boxing landscape has been hugely optimistic. It's been fantastic. The 2024, the amount of world title fights that have happened, the amount of top sort of 10 fighters that have actually met across all the weight divisions, it's been refreshing. I mean, it does happen, and it happens each and every year. But it's the sort of the amount of promotion and advertising and awareness that it gets, which is often over the last sort of few decades has been lost. But because of certain reasons why boxing has come to the forefront as, a major sport over the last sort of couple of years, more of a microscope has been put on some of the biggest fights. But it's a two-way thing. Also, boxing itself as a sport, its hand has been forced. So its popularity has caused it to also need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And we've had some terrific fights over the last 18 months across all the weight divisions, like I've said. And the next sort of 4 to 5 weeks is no exception. And it looks to be a terrific end to the year.
Mm. What would you like to see that we aren't seeing then?
What would I like? Well, the sort of the process and the trajectory that boxing is going on over the last couple of years is positive. That can't be denied. Obviously, there's going to be prize fights. There's going to be circus events similar to last weekend's, but that's always been something which boxing has allowed and sort of had to have. You don't have to be a professional boxer who is actually competing to be the number one fighter in the world at your respective weight division to be able to be fit enough and well enough and healthy enough to get a licence. And last weekend's fight, where they were only fighting 8 2-minute rounds with 14-ounce gloves, it was an example of that. So, freak shows, etc., are never going to be too far away from sort of the core,
I agree,
part of boxing. But we must also, yourselves as tremendously sort of respected journalists, fans like myself, we've also got to sort of spread the word and make people aware that on a regular basis, week after week, month after month, boxing does have the best versus the best. There are the top 10, top 20 in the world. There's also great domestic fights around the continent, around the whole world, competitive bouts, whether it be 4, 6, 8, 10 or 12 round fights. So it's very easy for even the best people in the media and also fans to go away, like to quickly criticise or berate boxing and use last week as a signifier for the sport, which it's the furthest thing from it. But we've also, so that's what I mean. You've got to think about the fights that are on the undercard. You've got to think about the fights that are happening at other events, but also take the pros and cons from what last week did.
Exactly.
And also make people aware that just because Jake Paul had a professional licence to fight 8 2-minute rounds with 14-ounce gloves, who's never fought a professional boxer in his life, and the only time he once did, who was barely in the top 150 at cruiserweight, he lost. So let's put it into perspective.
Okay.
It's not about, destroying Jake Paul and criticising him, and it's not about, crying about Mike Tyson. What it's about is just understanding.
Context is what you're talking about, aren't you? You're talking about context there, aren't you, Steve?
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Mate, superb.
Thank you.
No, I think that's a really balanced view. I think it's a really balanced view of everything that's happening in the landscape.
He's a purist.
He gets the game.
But we will always have circus, carnival, different things, call it freak show. We'll always have that on fringes. I don't think Jake Paul's a freak show. I think he's good for the sport.
We're going to discuss that a little bit further next because his manager, Nikisa Badarian, is going to be joining us on the show. Don't be going anywhere.
Monday night.
League 2 live on talkSPORT 2.
And he's gone straight in!
Port Vale versus Crewe.
An absolute corker.
Coverage from 7:30. Kick-off 8 p.m.
What an effort!
Monday night.
On Live Football Dynamo.
talkSPORT
2. Declaring your winner by unanimous decision, Jake
I was concerned about Mike Tyson. His legs look shaky. You and I know this, and everybody gets to know this. Father Time waits for no one.
One word, excruciate. It was painful to watch. It was just a sight for sore eyes.
We should be very careful not to exploit 58-year-old boxers, iconic figures like Mike Tyson.
He's pushing up boxing. I mean, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor are both making more money than they ever did with all their managers and all this shit. I mean, I love that Jake's bringing up other people.
Well, unless you've been living under a rock, it was the most talked about event in the world of fight sports last weekend, maybe even this year. The amount of numbers that it has generated has been astronomical, both for the main and co-main event. The numbers through the gate, the amount of money that they took on the gate, it's a groundbreaker. Netflix involved in fight sports, and one of the brain behind this escapade is Nikisa Badarian, who is Jake Paul's manager and business partner, and very kindly giving up a bit of time on our Saturday evening. I think it's your Saturday afternoon, wherever you are, Nikisa, to come and join us on the show. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I don't know what you meant by escapade, but I appreciate the fact that it was the most talked about boxing event since the days of Muhammad Ali. Look at any metric that you can think of. This blew away every fight that's existed in the US, particularly.
Listen, I'll talk about the event as a whole in a minute. I want to talk about the main event. What did you make of the main event?
Exactly as I said it would go. The first couple of rounds, Mike would be dangerous, and then it would be Jake's time to shine. I think Mike was actually dangerous for one round and got gassed, unfortunately, after the first round, which, was potentially going to happen given his age, given he hasn't been in the ring for a number of years. But he was extremely dangerous for a Jake Paul who was 12 fights in, one amateur fight against a YouTuber. And I think Jake just took over the fight, and by the fourth round realized he didn't need to put himself in danger and took a defensive strategy to the end.
What do you make of the criticism that the main event has obviously received online from fans and obviously people in the world of boxing, saying that it wasn't a real fight? There's obviously stipulations that get thrown towards opponents that Jake gets in with, that they're not allowed to do this and they're not allowed to do that. What do you make of those opinions?
Look, since Jake's, I think, second fight, people have been speaking about his fights being rigged or having contractual restrictions on what he or the opponent could do. And I think it speaks to the unbelievable success he's had as a fighter at such an early stage of his career, both inside and outside the ring. I think people forget that he's literally 13 fights into his career, including the amateurs. So when I think about someone like Carl Froch, who has repeatedly tried to discredit Jake Paul, and you look at his amateur career, 30 plus fights, and then I look at his opponents, 10, 12, 15 fights in. I looked at an opponent in his fourth fight. Jake Paul fought Tyron Woodley in his fourth fight, a UFC champion who's been on the biggest stages, who's a certified killer in mixed martial arts, and came over to boxing with a fairly novice Jake Paul. Carl Froch fought a guy in his fourth fight after 30 amateur fights who had 55 losses and ended his career with over 100 losses. So I don't have a problem with people saying Jake is not ready to be a champion. I don't have a problem with people saying Jake Paul's not the greatest boxer of all time. But if you compare him to 99% of your favorite boxers who are sitting there criticizing him, he's fighting tougher opponents, bigger names, bigger stages inside the ring, and undoubtedly, unequivocally doing more for the sport outside the ring than any of them did during their careers, any of them.
Listen, I agree with what you're talking about, him doing a lot of things outside the ring, and I want to praise that in a minute when I speak about Amanda Serrano and the rise of her career based off the work that she's doing with Jake. But you can understand the criticism that he gets because he's not actually fighting guys that are boxers. For example, you just mentioned Tyron Woodley there, and I agree with you. Listen, I know a lot about the UFC, and Tyron is an absolute killer in the world of UFC. But when it comes to boxing, he isn't a boxer, is he? And I know that you've just compared
That's one of the martial arts, absolutely. All UFC boxers train in boxing, hence why Alex Pereira...
It's a different type of striking, though, Nikisa. Come on. It's not the sweet science, is it? It's a different type
of... Right now, people are saying Alex Pereira would kill Jake Paul in a boxing match, right? And when you look at a guy who has 55 losses, that is the proverbial tomato can. He's being put in to lose. Jake Paul fought Tommy Fury, lost in a split decision. Jake Paul fought Andre August, a 10-1 pure boxer, right? A Golden Gloves boxer, beat him in the first round. Jake Paul fought 17-2 Ryan Borland, a Golden Glove boxer signed to Roy Jones Jr., an amateur champion. Jake Paul finished him in the first round. You know why Jake Paul finished him in the first round? Because all these boxers who are 10-1, 10-2, 10-5, 12-1, whatever they may be, most of them aren't ready for the big stage. And so Jake can go in there and do what he does. But to compare him to any of these other guys who have long amateur careers and start criticizing him, you don't understand what he's doing. You're just not aware. You're ignorant. The guy who was on the call prior to, it said Steve the Fan, he called it a freak show. Look at your favorite boxer, Steve. Tell me what they did in their 10th or 12th fight. Tell me the stage they fought on. Tell me the opponent and how competent they were coming into that type of venue and that kind of event. It's not even comparable.
Nikisa, full disclosure, I have a very good relationship with both yourself and with Jake and Logan Paul, and I get a lot of access, and I appreciate that. And I'm fully behind what Jake does in boxing. I think he's good for the sport, and I think what you guys are doing is extraordinary, and it was an amazing week last week. I think we were all seduced by wanting Mike Tyson to roll back the years and give Jake a much harder time than he did. I think the marketeering that you guys do, as you're speaking right now, is very brilliant. One of the things that I was arguing about with Adam earlier in the show, and we've worked together with for many years, Adam and I, both within UFC and MMA and boxing on lots of different fronts, is Adam can't believe that I do believe you and I believe Jake that a Saul Canelo Alvarez fight will happen at some point, maybe not immediately, because it is such an enormous event. You're serious about it, aren't you?
So, one, we're serious about it. Two, before I get to Saul, Lennox Lewis, pre-fight, fight night, champion from the UK, beat Mike Tyson twice, on record, leading up to the fight, saying he feels scared for Jake Paul and he hopes Jake Paul doesn't get hurt. Fight night, Jake Paul's going to get hurt. Once he gets in there with that man, he's not going to know how to handle himself when that bull is charging at you. People look at the videos of Mike Tyson and go, oh my God, that must have been rigged. He didn't do what he did in his videos. His videos, he has a stationary training partner or coach who's taking shots. Jake Paul is moving, using footwork, coming in and out, and he neutralized Mike Tyson, and he neutralized all the opinions of the former champions and the pundits who said Jake Paul was going to get killed. In terms of Canelo Alvarez, 1,000% that fight is going to happen. Whether it happens this year or next year, that is undoubtedly in the roadmap for Jake Paul.
At cruiserweight and 2-minute rounds, maybe?
Absolutely not 2-minute rounds. That was a request from Mike Tyson, and we felt that it was appropriate, given his age, to allow him to have more stamina. What's ironic is the women fight 2-minute rounds, and that's accepted as a professional bout. So for me, as long as there's 2-minute rounds and 3-minute rounds that are considered professional bouts, either men or women should be able to compete under those rules.
Nikisa, give me the stipulations of that particular contest, because there's no way that any sanctioning body is going to sanction Canelo Alvarez to fight Jake Paul.
Really?
There's no way that that's going to happen.
Tell me what's the most important sanctioning body in the United States of America. What would you say it is?
I would guess that it's the WBC with you.
No, New York or...
Are you talking about State Athletic Commissions, or are you talking...
New York or
Forget
Las
about
Vegas?
sanctioning bodies, irrelevant to the discussion, because Canelo Alvarez...
The commissions.
You're talking... Okay, so Nevada.
Exactly. So tell me what fights they've commissioned that are even more lopsided in terms of experience than Canelo.
Mayweather and McGregor for a start.
Listen, that's not what I'm saying.
Exactly. So if they do Mayweather and McGregor, Adam, why would they not do Canelo versus Jake Paul?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that a State Athletic Commission would not allow it, because of course they would allow it.
What were the stipulations of Mayweather McGregor?
Listen, that's not the argument that I'm making. I'm talking about You're now making a conversation about the guy that is the main man at 168 pounds in professional boxing, right? In Canelo Alvarez, and obviously he's floated up and down in weight divisions, and he's even maybe thinking about next time challenging
cruiserweight. They've talked about.
Well, okay, whatever, right? But he is an active professional world champion, and we are now talking about fighting a guy, Jake Paul, who is doing fantastic things. Don't get me wrong; he's doing great things, pulling great numbers. But there is a massive level disparity. You've got to admit that.
So I'm going to ask you again, Adam, because you're a lot more knowledgeable about the fight game than I am. What were the stipulations when one of the greatest fighters of all time in boxing, and you said UFC is a different sport, fought Conor McGregor in Nevada on the world stage? What were the stipulations?
Well, did they do 8-2s? Is that what it was?
No, it was 10-3s.
Was it 10-3s?
10-3s, yeah.
What were the stipulations, Adam?
Well, the stipulations were that it was a professional boxing bout, wasn't it?
Right. So what were the stipulations? Why did they sanction Conor McGregor, who has much less boxing experience than Jake Paul, to fight Floyd Mayweather, a 49-0 undefeated boxer?
Well, I can't remember whether it was
exactly.
10 ounce or 14 ounce gloves.
Give me the exact point that you're trying to make.
It was 10 ounce, yeah.
It was a straight up professional. I was involved. It was a straight up professional 10-3 fight. And actually, to this day, still the most successful global fight outside of Paul Tyson.
$500 million it generated, didn't it? Yeah.
Yes. So to answer your question, I see no reason why Canelo Alvarez versus Jake Paul.
The main considerations, guys, would be from the commission: how much danger is Jake Paul in against Saul Canelo Alvarez? And if they believe, because I think he'd have to shrink down to 200 pounds, Nikisa, to fight at cruiserweight.
Jake has been campaigning at cruiserweight, right? For this particular fight against Mike Tyson, there was no world where Mike Tyson was going to campaign at cruiserweight. So Jake agreed to go up to heavyweight. And heavyweight, as you know, above 205 is widely open. And depending on the state, you can have, you can have 40, 50 pounds weight difference potentially. So that made sense for this fight. Jake does not plan to campaign at cruiserweight on a go-forward basis. He may at some point look at what someone called a freak show. No, what he may look at doing exciting, disruptive things like fighting a Anthony Joshua or a Daniel Dubois, but that's not in the current roadmap. But he will campaign at cruiserweight, and cruiserweight means 176 to 200 pounds. And Canelo Alvarez, from my understanding and my knowledge, walks around between
190.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you had those conversations already, Nikisa, with Canelo's team?
Have not.
Okay. What is the landscape going forward with Netflix? Because that's an exciting situation. Obviously, having them involved in the live fight sports space is extremely exciting. So what's the landscape there? Are they going to continue their involvement?
I think, look, we went into it with the understanding on both sides that this was a first-time thing, right? And to really see, could we capture the broader audience that boxing just doesn't have? Boxing is a niche sport. Boxing is becoming more and more fragmented, less distribution in the US than ever, unfortunately. And so for them, when we signed the deal November of last year, so a year ago, it was an MVP and Jake Paul deal with an opponent to be agreed upon. One of those opponents that was agreed upon was Tommy Fury. Unfortunately for Tommy Fury, him and his father weren't able to understand the benefits of being a part of a fight like this and not having pay-per-view upside. And now he's fighting an MMA guy in a few weeks who got choked out by Tyron Woodley previously. The event was a success across every metric, including the fact that we broke the internet. People can say, oh, there was buffering. Yes, because we did something that's never been done before. The record in the US for a live concurrent stream is 23 million. That was earlier this year on Peacock with an NFL playoff game. By the end of our first fight, we were at over 30 million concurrent streams. By the time Amanda and Katie started fighting, we were at over 40 million concurrent streams. So the numbers were astronomical, the success unprecedented, and the hope is we're going to find ways to continue working together.
On Nikisa, on Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, congratulations on that. It was extraordinary to have 50 million people watching these two brilliant women go at it.
74 million.
74.
47 million accounts, right? And if you look at that multiplier, that assumes less than 2 per household are watching. So based on their analysis, they were able to come back to a 74 million number.
And on that note, even though Katie's won both fights, I've spoken to Katie's team this week, Brian Peters and others, and I know there was a little bit of argumentation. I'll ask you about that in a minute, that there is probably a trilogy fight there. And are you looking to get a trilogy fight between them on the undercard of Jake's next fight? And did we almost see a fight between you and Eddie Hearn in the ring there at the end?
So you just said on the undercard of Jake's next fight. And for me, every time Amanda Serrano has fought on an MVP card with Jake Paul, she's been the co-main event.
Co-main, I mean, sorry. I don't mean...
On the Paul Tyson fight, they were definitely the double main event, right? It's amazing to see how the narrative changes. I've seen Clarissa Shields now say, oh, you guys didn't have the biggest women's event because people weren't watching for you. They were watching for Paul Tyson. Right? But before it was, oh my God, you're underneath Paul Tyson. You should be after them. You guys are the real boxers. No, the entire strategy of what we did was to give women's boxing the biggest platform it's ever had, because we knew that Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano were unbelievable athletes that were going to put on the show of a lifetime and get people engaged and interested and entrenched into women's boxing. So we love the result of what the event did. We don't like the result of the decision, but I love the outcome. And I love the outcome because we had a trilogy pre-agreed had Amanda won, or if it was a draw. Now, Amanda Serrano is the biggest star in female combat sports. She's the most followed female boxer of all time on social media. Her star power in the US has never been bigger. And we'll look to do a trilogy if that's what Amanda and Katie want to do.
Fantastic.
I think regarding what you just said on the co-main event, I'm absolutely on the same page. I think what yourself and Jake have done for Amanda's career,
and women's boxing,
I was just about to say, and women's boxing in general, these fights that you put on with Katie have been absolutely sensational. And I, for one, am a champion of the third fight. I would love to see 3-minute rounds between these two, because I think they deserve to obviously take that. Take the female game to the next level, and fingers crossed that is the next part of their story. Nikisa, I could sit here and talk to you all day long. I'd love to pick your brains about loads of different things, but I'm being told that I've got to go to break. So thank you so much for coming to join us on the programme, and hopefully we'll get to speak again sometime soon.
Thank you, mate.
Speak to you, Garrett. Nice to see you as always.
Cheers.
Top man. There you go. Nikisa Badarian there. Giving us a little bit of insight into last weekend's event from Texas, which did, as he's just stated, break an awful amount of records. Stick with us. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT.
Hi, it's Jeff Stelling here. Prepare yourself for a massive week of magnificent midweek football on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2.
Fabulous stuff.
It's a Tuesday night twofer. Sunderland and West Brom face off in the Championship live on talkSPORT 2.
And he has sealed a brilliant win.
With Sporting Lisbon versus Arsenal in the Champions League live on talkSPORT. Both games kick off at 8 p.m.
A moment of magic.
With your chance to react after the final whistle on the Sports Bar from 10.
What a challenge.
It's another massive midweek mega hit of live football on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2.
It's a nice combination from Ramirez again. The second one got through. Good right hand there from Ramirez. That was a solid shot, and you saw the legs just give a fraction there from Billum Smith. A good accurate right hand from Ramirez as well.
Oh, good left hook shot from Billum Smith there. Ramirez fires back. Good trade up here. Both men landed big shots there.
Winner, and now the unified WBA, WBO champion from Mexico, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez.
You listen to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall. Gareth Davies is alongside me. Latino Night, sponsored by Riyadh Season. Last weekend saw the unification in the cruiserweight division, where Zurdo Ramirez came through and got the job done over Britain's own Chris Billam-Smith. I got this one wrong. I thought that Zurdo would absolutely have success in the fight, but I thought that Chris Billam-Smith, given the fact that he would make it horrible and ugly and get in on the inside and make it dirty, I thought that he would be able to do very similar to what he did with Matthias Masternak. When Masternak was outboxing him, I thought that he would find a way against Zurdo Ramirez, but I was absolutely wrong. Zurdo Ramirez was sensational last weekend. His footwork, his shot selection, and the way that he navigated that fight really does now set up a super fight with him and Jai Opetaia. You've got to take your hat off to Chris Billam-Smith. He rolled the dice. He went for it. He never stopped trying to win, but he was just completely outclassed.
Yeah, well, I was on record. I've watched. I've been at a few fights of Zurdo, the Golden Southpaw, as he's known in Spanish. I'd had the privilege of watching him in his super middleweight period a couple of times live, and I was so impressed with him. He's a sneaky southpaw. He's got bigger as he's got older, and he's filled out. He used to be a gangly thing of 6'3", but he was capable of going into wars. And I picked him to win on points or by late stoppage even. Chris was extraordinary as well on the night. Courage and cojones in droves. And that's why Shane McGuigan, in spite of the broken thumb we heard afterwards, the ribs...
Oh, he's damaged himself up, yeah.
Really, the cut from early on... we were watching it in Texas, myself, Ed, Spencer, and Romario, in an Uber on the way to the stockyard to see the rodeo on the Saturday night, and it just seemed to be a fight that went on for 25 rounds. It was so grueling. Zurdo was always just one step ahead.
I agree.
But Chris had moments, even in the 9th, 10th and 11th, when he was battling back.
Yep.
I had it 8-4 to Zurdo, 16-12. I love the fact that Mauricio Suleiman has come out after and said he is such a great champion that we want to rank Billam-Smith highly. And because Badu Jack is the champion in recess and the belt's gone to Noel Mikhailian, he could even have a world title shot next, or even after. I think that's great for him. And he's kind of... Listen, I picked against him with Riakporhe. I picked against him with Akoli and was totally wrong about Billam-Smith. He's an extraordinary man with he's got a champion's heart. There's no doubt he's got champion in his soul. And I think he deserves a world title shot again, in spite of just having lost that fight.
Well, I think we are... I mean, we've just been speaking, obviously, extensively tonight about the landscape of boxing and where we're currently at. This year's been a good year because we're getting fights that we want to see. And I think a lot of fight fans have bought in on the Chris Billam-Smith story because he's backed up the things that he said that he was going to do. He's won a world title, and then he's not defended it in a Mickey Mouse defence. He's taken on the toughest defence, and then he's brought in the fight with Riakporhe, where he could have swerved that. He didn't do that. He took him on in his own backyard and beat him. And then he's taken... I think the dream was actually to fight in America, but it just so happened that it happened out in Saudi Arabia against Zurdo Ramirez. That's a tough fight, and he's fallen short. But it's the manner of which he goes about fighting. It's all on the line. It's all heart. It's all will. And listen, there's a lot of skill there as well. But you're going to get bang for your buck with Chris Billam-Smith. And I'm not against him fighting the WBC champion straight away,
even though it's not meritocratic, as you really do push very
yes,
hard.
Absolutely,
and you deserve praise for
agree.
that. But he has, but Riakporhe's number 6 with them. Masternak's number 13 with the WBC.
He's beaten them both.
So he's beaten them both. So do you slide him in at 5? The problem he's got is Noel Mikhailian going to agree to fight him? Because no one wants to fight Billam-Smith in reality. But on the other side of it. Zurdo against Jai Opetaia, Adam, flipping heck. I nearly swore then. Flipping heck.
It's in your top 3 fights for 2025, isn't it?
Oh my God. 2 southpaws. Look what Zurdo's just done. Jai Opetaia's power is the thing for me. I think he stops him late.
Well, Jai is... The thing is with Jai, he burst onto everybody's scene off the back of the Bradis fights, and he's beaten a couple of British lads in these Riyadh seasons. And everybody's gone, he's just a knockout artist. He's much more than that. He's a very accomplished, technical fighter. But
he's a horrible man to fight.
But he does have power. And this is the beautiful thing about it. And this is why I wanted to see him in with Chris Billam-Smith, because I thought that would be purely a battle of will. Whose will would go first? I don't think either of them would go first, but then the skill would rise, and I thought that Jai Opetaia might come through that particular fight. I think Jai would beat Zurdo Ramirez, but having watched what I've seen at the weekend just gone, It's a super fight. I want to see it, and it's in my top 3 for 2025.
I think it's very close for 8 rounds, seven rounds, and then I think Jai's got this weird power. And you know, I hope Chris gets to fight Jai at some point. Chris is one of those guys, just to go back to him for a second, who... I hate using this expression about a man who's still in his purple patch in his career. He's almost too tough for his own good, and he might almost need saving from himself eventually. Because
but that's what makes him brilliant to watch.
He is amazing to watch.
Just a quick one as well on that card. A guy that I'm so high on. I actually flattered to deceive a little bit last week. I felt a little bit for Tevin Farmer in the fight with William Zepeda. I'm a massive fan of Zepeda, and I want to see him in with Shakur Stevenson. But there was a few questions that come off the back of that fight. I thought Tevin Farmer was absolutely brilliant last weekend, as was Honorable Bowser Jr., who did the business against Jose Ramirez.
And also Oscar, I forget his surname now, the minimum weight fighter. Duarte. I'm telling you.
What a fighter.
Under Miguel Cotto de Puerto Rico, tío, he is going to be... I saw a special fighter there. A very, very special fighter. And led by the man in his pink clogs, Cotto, he will take him to the very, very top.
Hey, you didn't expect that this evening, did you? Next week, it is Sonny Edward versus Galal Yafai, so we're bringing everything back to British soil. I know there's a lot of fights taking place away from British soil at the moment, but next week, Birmingham's the destination for an absolute cracker. We'll talk about it next.
Fight Night with Adam Catterall and Gareth A. Davies.
The fight starts now
on talkSPORT, the home of boxing.
And still, the WBC International Flyweight Champion, Galal Yafai. Showtime, Sonny
got history as well. He beat me that much. Yeah, we're cool. And I'm sparring the world champion at my weight. And I ain't even had a pro fight.
Why not get a cracker now? I genuinely think it's going to be one of the best fights to watch.
All eyes on Birmingham next week. Because these two have been having a little bit of a back and forth for some time. Obviously, their brothers are both professional fighters. And there's been a bit of back and forth between the brothers. These two have met in the amateurs in the past, and they get to do it in a professional ring next weekend. The main event, Sonny Edwards taking on Galal Yafai. Listen, boxing is going around the world. It's an international sport, of course. We know that Saudi Arabia is heavily involved now in the game, and it's providing us great fights, but a lot of those fights are taking place on Saudi Arabian soil. It's nice to have something for the British fight fans, those that have bought the tickets in Birmingham to go out and watch next weekend, and I genuinely think they're in for a real treat when these two start throwing down.
Listen, this is a world title fight, even though it's not. This is a British bragging rights fight. No, but it's equivalent.
It's
to
a world level fight, is what
it's
you're referring to.
It's a world level fight.
There you go.
It's worthy of a world title, is what I actually mean. It's a brilliant fight. There's history. There's two different styles. That come forward, aggressive, counter-punching style of Galal Yafai, who was an Olympic champion 3 years ago. Who's really raised his levels, who we don't really know yet how good he is as a pro. His career's kind of stuttered and stuttered a little bit. We know what Sonny Edwards is. He'll get into Galal's head mentally next week. He's very, very clever. Will he stand and bang with him a little bit like he did with Bam when it didn't go right against Bam Rodriguez a few months back? Or will he just do that will-o'-the-wisp, in and outbox and outmove Galal Yafai? It's a brilliant fight. I cannot wait for it. I've gone back and forth. My first instinct was Galal as the winner. Sonny then pulled me back with kind of saying, no, you haven't seen the sparring, you don't know. But that was a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I still go with my instincts, but it's going to be an amazing battle, Adam.
Just having a quick look at when it was that they met each other in the amateurs. It's 2015, April of 2015. Obviously, in the amateurs, it's 3-3s. Liverpool's Echo Arena in the English National Elite 49 kg semi-final. It was Sonny that had his hand raised. It was a split decision. It was an incredibly close fight. But it was when Galal, I think it's only Galal's third amateur bout. So it was well early in his amateur career. And obviously, he's gone on to do incredible things, picking up that gold medal at the Olympic Games. And now, here he is. This is, as you rightfully pointed out, this is the opportunity because, I mean, massive cojones of Sonny to take on the Jesse Bam Rodriguez fight. We all wanted it. Big unification fight. And we know what Bam is. Bam's, right now, for me, is a top 5 pound-for-pound superstar. He's going to go on to be one of the all-time greats. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And Sonny came up short. And it's the first time that we've ever seen Sonny in that type of trouble in a fight. But like I said, he's fighting an absolute legend.
Fought the wrong fight early on there as well, though, didn't he? Should have moved, first of all. But he thought he tried to get the respect of Bam early and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, who knows, we might get to see that again, maybe a little bit further down the line. The Adrian Curiel fight last time out, I thought Sonny looked like he was back to his best. He looked like he was moving.
Himself.
Yeah, doing his thing. So I fully anticipate that Sonny Edwards is going to be back to his very best doing his thing this weekend. But against Galal Yafai, you're right in what you're saying, right? He wins his medal, he turns pro, and it's been one of them slow burners.
Stop-start, yeah.
Listen, it's only relatively new since he's turned over, obviously since winning that medal. 2022 is when he made his debut, so we're only 2 years into this, eight fights in. And it's been a little bit slow. It's been a little bit, okay, cool. This is the one. This is the moment now for Galal Yafai where he gets the opportunity to show that he is ready to rock and roll with the top boys in the pro game. I think stylistically it is a brilliant, brilliant fight because Galal Yafai's got great feet. He's a great boxer and he does have a little bit of a pop in his hands, whereas Sonny Edwards is the epitome of the matador, isn't he? He likes to get on that back foot, skate around the ring and absolutely bamboozle you with angles and shots from all over the place. I think it's going long. I think you're going to see the full hit. But I think you're going to see an absolute cracking fight between two guys that really, really want it and want to get to the top level.
Well, I think what Galal has is a style.
I've just seen, actually, you are right. It isn't. They've put an interim title on. I hate interim titles, but there's an interim title on.
But it's but all I meant was that you could easily see them fighting over a world title. But
yes, of
this
course.
is very much the championship of each other, which is an expression I often use, and I think what I love about Galal's style, I love Sonny's style, hit and not be hit, but is Galal has that style that Vasyl Lomachenko, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, Alexander Usyk to a certain extent, or maybe even completely, that you're forcing your opponent to fight you from the southpaw stance, you're moving them into the position and you're countering them aggressively. And I think it's the most amazing style on earth, and it's one that is a very, very successful one in this modern era. And I just think if Galal can impose himself on Sonny, he's going to make him fight him. But Sonny could out-bamboozle him all night, so we just don't know. And it's an amazing style matchup. I cannot wait for it.
Good news is that Callum Smith's also on this card. He's making his comeback. We haven't got an opponent for him as of yet, but it's good to have him back in the
light
mix.
Heavy?
Light heavy, absolutely. Lots of local talent on there. Conor Walker's taking on Lewis Ritson, which should be an absolute cracking fight in the welterweight division. And keep an eye out for this fight. Cameron Vuong, who's been making some serious noise, he's undefeated in 6 fights. He's taking on Gavin Gwynn. We know.
That's going to be a bit of talking going into that as well, isn't it?
Listen, Gavin Gwynn's been there, done it, and got the T-shirt. Cameron Vuong's a young guy coming through. It's a big opportunity for him. If he can get a win over Gavin Gwynn, then the world is his oyster. Away he goes. Kieran Conway taking on Ryan Kelly as well for the Commonwealth title. Listen, it's going to be a good night, but it's all about that main event for me. It's all about Sonny Edwards and Galal Yafai. So we'll have the breakdown on that throughout the course of the week right here on talkSPORT.
On 1089 and 1053 medium wave, online, on your mobile and on your smart speaker.
No nonsense November football.
talkSPORT.
talkSPORT.
Just gone 11 o'clock on talkSPORT. So, who saw that coming?
Manchester City 0, Tottenham 4.
Incredible stuff at the Etihad. City's 5th defeat in a row and the end of their 52-match unbeaten run at home. But Pep says changing his methods would be a huge mistake.
After winning 4 in a row, the Premier League and the Champions League, and being there all the time then, now I'm going to change because I want to change it for 1 or 2 defeats.
For Spurs, defeat to Ipswich, then smashing City. 6th, but with a goal difference much higher than anyone around them. Here's Big Ange.
The games we have won, we've hit levels we never got close to last year, but it's fair to say our flat spots have been pretty flat. So that's the bit we've just got to address.
So Liverpool can go 8 points clear tomorrow, and City now have Arsenal, Chelsea and Brighton on their tails. Arsenal beat Forest 3-0 and Mikel Arteta seemed pretty happy with himself.
I leave Declan out, Thomas out, Kai Havertz out, and there's always a risk implicit in those decisions. Sometimes when you make decisions like that, good things happen.
Elsewhere, Wolves climbed out of the relegation zone with a 4-1 win at Fulham. Villa came back twice to draw with Palace, and Everton and Brentford was goalless. Fair play to Andy Murray, who lost 4 Australian Open finals to Novak Djokovic, but will now coach Djokovic at the Australian Open. And in rugby, victory for South Africa in Cardiff was Wales's 12th defeat in a row. Eat your heart out, Man City.
talkSPORT News.
A man's died after a tree fell on his car in Hampshire as Storm Bert causes havoc across the UK. It's been described as a multi-hazard weather event with heavy rain, snow and winds of up to 70 miles an hour. 10 people had to be rescued from a house in North Wales following a landslide. And Nikita Hand, who accused Conor McGregor of rape and won her case, has been hailed by Ireland's Justice Minister, who's praised her bravery and determination.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. For a limited time only, get 15% off a set of 4 selected premium tyres in our Black Friday event. Don't miss out and book today at quickfit.com and drive away happy every time. Conditions apply.
Warnings of excessive rain are in place for the whole of the south coast of England, the southwest, parts of the northwest and Wales, all because of Storm Bert.
This is it. The time has come.
Get in the ring and go the distance with Fight Night.
Puts him down.
With Adam Catterall and Gareth A. Davies.
You're better than that.
On talkSPORT, the home of boxing.
Roundup of the world of MMA. With Vanessa, who very kindly has given up a bit of time on a Saturday night to come and join us in the studio. How are you, V? You good?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks.
Were you up early doors this morning like me, watching prelims at 8 a.m. from Macau?
I did. You know what? I was watching Lonnie Kavanagh because he came off of Cage Warriors, and I had a little chat with him last week as well. He had a really nice win. It was the first time he's actually gone the distance. He's more of a finisher, but it was a sensational matchup and a good win.
What did you make of the card as a whole this morning? There was a lot of, for those that didn't catch it, there was a lot of road to the UFC fights, which was obviously based out of the Asian bracket. Some sensational knockouts on there, which I know you're going to get stuck into in a minute. And then the main card was obviously, it all built up towards what I would class as the main contenders fight in the bantamweight division between Petr Yan and Davison Figueiredo.
Yeah, you had a pretty epic knockout. One of the girls, she got a massive head kick. She was actually taken out on a stretcher, and it was the first time we've had one of the women have such a brutal KO on the road to the UFC. So she is okay. They are giving updates on it, but it was pretty scary, to be honest with you. But it was beautiful. It was beautifully scary.
It was Feng Xiaonan who
was that the tiny girl who threw that massive head kick?
Yeah.
And the commentators were saying at the time she really needs to get into range here, and suddenly, curse to the commentator, she got the knockout. Listen, she was carried out. Is she okay or not?
Yes. Listen, as Vanessa just said, it was a frightening knockout because she was carried out on a stretcher. She was out cold for 4 minutes. Which is unheard of, really, when you have a knockout like that. It was a head kick knockout. Feng Xiaonan, she is okay, but she was taken to hospital for checks, and she's been given the thumbs up. So that's all good. But from Ming Shi, the girl that delivered the knockout, I mean, what a moment for her. She's off to the UFC.
I mean, what a way to welcome yourself into the UFC.
Ming Dynasty.
Make a statement.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Indeed. What did you make of the rest of the main card?
Well, I thought the main event was sensational, to be honest with you. Davidson Figueiredo and Petr Yan, that could have been a main event on a pay-per-view card. It was so good. And Petr Yan was like vintage Petr Yan. You know, his boxing was amazing. I wrote in my predictions that I thought that Figueiredo would basically use a lot of his kicks and stuff to kind of like nullify the boxing of Petr Yan, but he's so good at his takedown defense. You know, when he fought Mirab, there was 49 takedowns with 38 of them defended. So I knew he was going to have good takedown defense, but the way he shifted his hips, used his kicks, and just basically had a belting on him. But there were moments where Figueiredo came back. You could tell he was frustrated. and he did land on him, and Peter acknowledged that in the post-fight conference. But in the end, it was just basically Peter's back in his groove.
Great footwork he's got, hasn't he? That's the thing about him. He's almost like a boxer.
Well, his boxing is sensational.
Exactly. He's got that footwork a lot of the others don't have.
He's been training with my mate ahead of his world title next week, Brendan Loughnane. On Friday night, he's in the final for the PFL. Peter Yan's his training partner, so if Brendan does half as well as what Peter did earlier on today,
another million
million
potentially. My guy as well. I'm all in for Brendan.
There's a lot of my guys on the show tonight.
There's a lot of my guys. Mike Tyson,
guys.
John Jones. I know we'll come to it.
But from Piotr's point of view, listen, he was 1-3 going into that today. And I know that 2 of those losses were split decisions, very contentious. It was only Merab that really dominated him. He got on the microphone immediately after and he called for a title shot.
I think he deserves it, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I think, look, we might see a rematch with O'Malley and Merab, or maybe... Who have we got going up for the...
Listen,
it's Umar, isn't it? They want to be next.
The fight, absolutely, in that division is Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, but after that...
Well, the problem is going to be, if you look at the schedule for the start of next year, you've got rumoured Makhachev against Sorokin, which will be the January pay-per-view. We don't know what we're doing in February, which is going to be Sydney. And then the one after that, I think it's back in Vegas, or it might even be LA. No, LA's January, so it'll be Vegas in March. And it falls about 2 weeks after Ramadan starts, right? So therefore, if it's Merab that is targeting UFC 313 in March, that then causes complications for Umar Nurmagomedov to take that fight because of, obviously, his obligations with Ramadan. If it's not Umar, listen, Piotr's put his hand up. There's other people in the hat. Sean O'Malley rematch, as you just highlighted there, could be a valid thing. But for me, it should be Umar Nurmagomedov.
Well, if it's not him and he wants to wait until after Ramadan and he's guaranteed a title shot, then I think it's okay for Peter to step in. Also, he's fought, I think, in his last 3 fights are all champions or ex-champions.
Yeah, fair.
And then the other thing is they were also really close decisions. People also were calling it close. Some people were giving it, not the Merab fight, but the O'Malley fight. Some people were giving it to
Run
Peter.
That back. Run Peter Yan and Sean O'Malley back.
I'm not mad about that either.
Okay.
But
O'Malley was at Jake Paul, Mike Tyson the other night, by the way.
Sugar Sean was knocking about in Texas with you, was he?
Yeah, he was. I grabbed him and he disappeared to the bar behind. I was really disappointed because I've never interviewed him. And he's much smaller in real life than I imagined.
As in height-wise?
Just small, he's just slight.
Well, he's a bantamweight, mate.
I know,
he's 135 pounds.
You thought he'd be taller, Paul.
I thought he'd be taller. He's like 5'9" and very
right,
skinny.
okay.
I just, for some reason, because I had never met him before, what a great guy he is, though.
He's cool, man.
He was cowboy hat, boots.
Did he?
Yeah.
He had the full hit.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
He looked slick as. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but I really enjoyed meeting him, but I didn't get the interview.
Do you know what? It's probably because if he's 5'9", everyone in bantamweight's like my height, like 5'4". I'm not even 5'4". That's
You're
a lie.
not 5'4".
I'm not. I'm
You're
absolutely
You normally
not.
strutting at 5'11".
I'm 5'4" with heels.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'm 6'6" in heels.
Listen, what did you make of UFC 309 New York last weekend?
Oh my God, I loved it. You know, Charles Oliveira is one of my most favourite fighters ever. I'm a bit of a fangirl, and he delivered. I'm glad that was fight of the night. I knew it was going to be fight of the night. It was sensational. So I'm absolutely stoked for that. You've got, you know, Conor McGregor's talked a lot of stuff about him, and he said in the post-fight that he doesn't really see that happening, but he's going to fight the winner of Arman Sorokin and Islam Makhachev, and I do think that he could become champ again. I quite hope that he does. And then you've also got Max Holloway rematch. You know, now that Max Holloway's back up at lightweight, that's also a potential really fun fight, depending on how that goes.
What'd you do with Michael Chandler?
He's a fun fight. Well, he could even fight Max Holloway. I'm not mad about that either. Like, it'll just be a banger. I don't think...
You're not mad about a lot of things.
No,
I'm
not. But you know, because they're really exciting. And you know that if it's Max Holloway and Chandler, they're just going to go in there, throw everything down for like 5 minutes. I don't know if we get out of the first round. So just stand in the centre.
I'm going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons at both of you right now because John Jones was brilliant at the weekend, UFC 309 against Stipe Miocic. Should he fight Tom Aspinall, Vanessa? And has Tom Aspinall got much of a chance against John Jones?
I actually do think that Tom will beat John Jones if it happens. I just think he's quicker, he's faster, he's got the power, he's got the jiu-jitsu. He's kind of matching him in everything, and he's got the youth on his side.
You're dissing the GOAT right now.
Well, I don't know. Look, Tom was right there. He saw everything front row. He's got the best information on John Jones watching him live. So, and he says it himself that he saw that there's a few openings for it. Do I think there's going to be a challenge? Absolutely.
What about you, Ed?
Listen, it's absolutely the fight. And if we take away the human beings that are involved in it, undisputed champion, interim champion have to fight each other. This is not boxing. This is the UFC. The best guys fight the best guys. We remove all doubt. Now, has John Jones earned the right to pick and choose who he fights? Of course he does. Now, if he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall and he wants to go off on these legacy fights, I have no problem with that because it's John Jones. But you give me the belt back because then the division moves on and then Tom Aspinall can crack on, do whatever he's doing in the heavyweight division. But I think the best fight in the UFC, in MMA, right now, is Tom Aspinall versus John Jones.
I disagree.
You think it's Alex Pereira?
I think Jones wins. I think Tom's got a massive opportunity in the first round because he reminds me of Fedor Emelianenko now. Strike, stun, submit. That's what he's got in him. He's amazing. But I think John is much smarter, even though he's older and he's a little slower.
Guy. Of course
but
he
the
is.
biggest fight in MMA right now, and I don't know if it's going to happen because the relationship between Dana White and Francis Ngannou, his team, is John Jones against Francis Ngannou.
Okay, maybe I should reword that then. The biggest fight in the UFC is John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. But as you've just said, MMA, you bring.
He was asked that in the post-fight press conferences as well, and he just totally poo-pooed it and basically wouldn't even answer the question. He just said, "We're talking about UFC. We're not talking about anything else."
One thing that I will say, right, because everybody's seen what happened with me and John last week, right?
Yeah.
I think that guy is an incredibly intelligent fellow. Okay, and I'm on record saying this. He's not scared of any fight. What he is concerned about is obviously diminishing his legacy, and therefore, if you are going to put his legacy on the line, the reward has to outweigh the risk.
And he's playing that game with everything he's saying. Exactly, and he deserves 12 to 15 million for having that fight, or maybe even more.
I heard that he wanted 30.
Well, there you go.
He's going to ask for big dough, right? Now, with all due respect, if we look at this properly, John Jones doesn't need the fight. It doesn't affect his legacy if he doesn't have it. Okay? Fans will have a little bit of a mourn for a bit, but they'll forget about it in 2 years' time. If he takes it and he wins, of course it heightens his legacy. No doubt about that. Tom needs it. No doubt. The UFC need it. If you look at that heavyweight division, there's not a lot of runners and riders there.
No, the trouble is if they have a fantastic fight, they'll want to run it back as well.
Come on. The UFC and Tom need it. So therefore, John's in a really good position.
Correct.
He's playing the game very, very well.
Yep.
I think he's going to get that extra note on his paycheck. And I would not be surprised if we get to International Fight Week next year, which is July, Tom Aspinall and John Jones throw down for everything in the
he's nearly
division.
40 then, though, isn't he? That's the problem.
Well, listen, and if they do, and if it goes like you're saying that we have an absolute firecracker,
they'll do two.
We might go again at Madison Square Garden at the back end of the year.
5 rounds of those two, Vanessa.
The thing is, we haven't got enough data in the octagon of Tom Aspinall. Mm-hmm. He's only been in there on an average of 2 minutes per fight. Okay, so we don't have that.
Fedor.
John Jones is a wily character. He knows what to do. He knows how to navigate certain situations. Personally, I believe that Tom's a little bit too quick for him right now, but I need to see it. I just need to see the fight.
I do think it happens in International Fight Week too. That's how I saw it.
And I'll be there. And I'll get my John Jones interview, maybe.
Well, we'll see about that.
Well, you know what? Or maybe we will see him fight Alex Pereira at like a catch weight or something. Maybe he'll lose a bit of weight.
Listen, Pereira can fight Ankalaev first. Let him deal with that. And then Ankalaev can come up and maybe fight the winner of Jones.
In pure UFC terms, that's a big one for the UFC fans to see Pereira against Jones. But Dana White's already said, I'm not sure I like the matchup. Do you remember he said after the post-fight?
He thinks it's too big. But, okay, what about if John Jones fights Tom Aspinall and then he fights Alex Pereira? Because Alex Pereira, I think he had like an 8-fight contract. He's probably like blitzed through half of that now just this year. And he really wants to fight at heavyweight. So then we do the Aspinall, see what happens, and then we have Alex Pereira, John Jones, just for everyone. I think that would play out.
If he's going to have 3 or 4 more fights.
He's never going to fight Ngannou.
Who?
John Jones.
I'm not sure about that.
I bet you reckon. Do something? That's probably more favourable for him than Tom Aspinall.
We had a chat about this when we did our talk up with our producer Ed tonight. If Turki Al Sheikh gets involved and they want to do it in Saudi Arabia, and the PFL acquiesces as well, and Dana White and the UFC agrees to it, and they do a mega event in Saudi Arabia, outside the auspices of the UFC at a certain time, they will make that Ngannou-Jones fight happen, in my view, because it's big enough and it would make enough money.
Let's do Jones-Aspinall, and the winner gets Ngannou. All right?
Oh, okay.
Can we do that?
All right.
Jones-Aspinall winner versus Ngannou.
All right.
And then we'll all retire happy.
Can I also say with Ben Elliott, I had a chat with him on the MMA YouTube channel the other week. It was so much fun.
Yeah, he's a lunatic.
This guy oozes gratitude, and I think he's going to be the biggest rising star. And I hope that he's on the London card, and I hope that he's on the main event.
He'll be on the main card.
Main card, maybe not main event. No, I have a whole system of who I want on that main card, but definitely he's on it.
I think he will be, mate. I think he will be. They can't not put the Welsh
He's
gangster on
just
that.
so cool, and he's got such personality.
All right, stop. Everybody's fanboying tonight, aren't they? On everybody. He's been giving it the one on the Mike Tyson. We've got the Orban Elliott loving. I've been
Mike
doing
Tyson, come on.
All right, stop it now. What
John Jones, come
John
on.
Jones.
I'm
Oliveira. I'm Oliveira's
Right, on that note, we're going to speak to Orban Elliott next. Don't go anywhere. You listen to talkSPORT.
This winter, talkSPORT 2 brings you live exclusive ball-by-ball commentary of England's Test match series in New Zealand, starting with the first test this Wednesday night from 10, exclusively on talkSPORT 2.
Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Adam Catterall. Gareth Davies is alongside me. We were going to speak to Orban Elliott. He did message me earlier on today saying that he was out celebrating his fantastic win at Madison Square Garden this time last week, and he's still out. I don't think it's the wisest thing to stick him on the radio right now. He's enjoying himself a little bit too much.
Has he got back from New York or not?
Yeah. He got back on Tuesday.
Okay,
he had a good go up until Tuesday. He's come home. He's with his mates in the valleys, man. They're wild people. They're enjoying themselves. Leave them to it.
He's with the blood. With the blood.
He's with the gang. Yeah. So, Vanessa's kindly stuck around for another 10 minutes because we're going to spitball some ideas in and around the March card, which was announced last week that the UFC is coming back to London, March 22nd. It'll be a fight night. It won't be a pay-per-view. It'll be a fight night card at the O2 Arena. But before you get stuck into that, Laughing Boy over here wants to chuck a fantasy fight our way, don't you?
Well, we didn't have a chance to we had Nikisa Bidarian on earlier on the show, Mike, Jake Paul's manager and the head of Most Valuable Promotions, and I didn't have a chance to ask him about it, and I know it's being talked about in the backgrounds, mentioning John Jones, they are thinking about a boxing match between Jake Paul and John Jones. Discuss, please, Vanessa.
Okay. Like, you know what? Then he's going to get his, his big money on that as well. Maybe he will get the 30 million if he fights Jake Paul, and maybe he'll be the one to knock him out.
So it's doable then. You see it as a viable commercial entity. Adam, discuss, please.
Jake, if you want a proper fight, take on Tom Aspinall. He'll have a go with you.
Well, he spars with Mike Tyson Fury, so that would be competitive.
This is too good a boxer.
Of course, it's doable.
He is too good a boxer.
What you've just said is, of course, it's doable. Who's too good of a boxer?
Tom Aspinall. Yes. I think his boxing is outstanding.
Yes.
Yeah, very clever boxer.
Okay, you're just throwing cats amongst the pigeons today, aren't you, with these fights?
I'm just excited. We're right. There's so much going on.
I wouldn't even be mad about if Tom took a break and went over and had a boxing fight. Maybe he needs a big money fight if John Jones is going to take his time.
He's fighting John Jones, all right?
Eventually.
Calm down, everybody. That's the fight that we all want. Anyway,
John Jones won't be giving you interviews hearing all of this.
Listen, John's cool. John, if you're watching this, I'll see you soon. Right, come on. You've started making a fantasy card, haven't you, for March 22nd in London?
Yeah, I've got it.
What do you want to see? Remember, it's a fight night.
It's a fight night.
So you would imagine there's no title, so Tom probably wouldn't be on there.
No, Tom's not on there. I'm not even putting him on there.
Right,
I've got Lerone Murphy. Definitely want to see him on that coming off.
Whoa. You can't just say, I want to see this fight. I want you to give me the fight.
Yeah, Lerone Murphy.
Give me the matchmaking.
Lerone Murphy's going to fight Brian Ortega.
Oof. On a London fight night.
I hope so.
Okay.
The Dreamboat's coming into town, man.
T-City.
Okay, you got Arnold Allen. Yair Rodriguez.
That's a great fight. Have they not fought before, those two?
No.
From memory. That's a terrific stylistic matchup, isn't it?
100%. Paddy.
Yeah.
Moicano.
Of course.
They've been talking about that forever.
Yeah.
MVP versus Wonderboy. Kicking masterclass.
Love it.
Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena.
Okay.
And then the winner of that.
This is all on the same card, yeah?
Yeah.
You are greedy.
That's a nice card.
Then you've got, because then Leon will fight, then the winner of that will fight the winner of, then you've got Shavkat and Ian Gary fighting each other soon. So then we'll see who next title.
How does that go, Rakhimov and
I think
Ian Gary? How does that go?
I'm happy that Ian Gary stepped up. I mean, he's putting his money where his mouth is, but Shavkat's undefeated or finishes, 18 wins, 18 finishes. And then you got 15-0 with Ian Gary.
He's got some swag about him. I always think, oh God, is he really doing the right thing here with his swag and his verbals? But you know what? He delivers.
He does.
Listen, he's stepping up. I'm stoked he's stepping up.
If Ian Gary can keep that fight on the feet, he has a chance. But Shavkat's grappling's ridiculous. It's very, very good, as well as his striking. But I think they're evenly matched on the feet when it comes to striking. When it comes to grappling, it's Shavkat's game.
Yeah, Ian moves really well, but he's moving around.
So week tonight, is it week tonight? Oh, 2 weeks tonight, UFC 310.
So that's really good. Then I want to see on the card. I haven't really matched them up yet. Oban Elliott, Jack Shaw, Nathaniel Wood, Lonnie Kavanagh, who just got the win now because he's from London. I mean, he's Chinese-Irish, but he's from London. And Jordan Vucenic.
Vanessa, you've forgotten something here.
Who?
We need 1 or 2 women's fights.
Oh, yeah. So,
where's the meatball?
Where's the meatball, Molly?
I have got her on there. I have got
Very
Molly
remiss
McCann
of you there, leaving her till
and
last.
Alice Ardeline, because she's super fun.
Yeah.
And then I thought, Paul Craig did lose, but he's Scottish and we love him.
Paul Craig isn't a woman. I need another woman's
so Molly
fight.
McCann and Alice Ardeline is the women I have on there.
Right.
So every fight's got a Brit in it. Is that what you're saying?
Mostly, yeah. And I don't want them fighting each other.
Why not?
Because I don't want them
Listen.
to. They've got better matchups.
Listen, this could be amazing. Brit on Brit violence. That's how you market this.
No.
Yes, this is how you do it, right?
No.
Lerone Murphy, Arnold Allen. Both top contenders in that division. Put them in there together. Winners absolutely one fight away from fighting for a title.
Number 12 number 12 versus number 7.
There you go. Let's do it. It happens, right? You mentioned 2 lads there. Leon Edwards, MVP.
Ooh.
I just think
that's a great fight.
Listen, there's no friends in this game, mate. MVP versus Wonderboy. I just think he's a little bit of a standoff. Look at each other. It's a bit like that Spider-Man meme, innit? You know what I mean?
No groundwork at all, is there, in that one?
But I don't think there is in a Leon Edwards MVP fight. I think it's a great striking contest, but I think there'll be a little bit more action in that fight. Leon Edwards versus MVP is unbelievable.
Am I wrong to say that I might see MVP in the stand-up as favourite in that?
Maybe. Beautiful striker. Beautiful, but Leon's I think Leon just needs more output. Very similar to what Fabian was doing, obviously, in the PFL recently. Needs a little bit more output. Paddy Moicano, I'm going to tip as probably the main event. I think it's time for Paddy to main event, especially after what he did with Bobby Green. I think he could sell out the O2. It'll be absolutely bouncing. Moicano's got the money vibe. I think it's a great fight. Put it in as 5 rounds.
Sick. He's been doing so well lately.
Yeah.
Even when he loses, he still puts on such a show. Like, they're wars. So I like it.
I think there might be a little bit more of a European flavour. Some of those European superstars might
What's
feature.
the French friend, Xavier? He fought recently. Massive KO. We're watching it in here.
Are you talking Morgan Charrier?
Charrier, that's it. I wouldn't mind seeing him on that too.
Right.
That'd be a
Très
good
bien.
fight.
Vachement bien ça.
Could we...
All in all, I think it'll be an absolute firecracker of a card. The thing is, and what you're highlighting there, is that Britain has got a lot of MMA talent at very elite levels. Some ranked, some not ranked, but they're all starting to make some noise. What you've just said there about Auburn Elliott, he's got to be on the card because he'll bring an unbelievable following and it'll be bouncing. I'm looking forward to some of them names being announced. And also, the rumour is that the UFC will be bringing the bandwagon to Madrid as well this year. So therefore, maybe some of those British fighters might feature in a Spanish card.
Is that because of Topuria?
Because of Ilia Topuria doing his thing.
About time.
Absolutely. Stick with us. Plenty more still to come between now and the end of the show. We're going to preview a little bit of Usyk Fury. Don't go anywhere.
Got an unquenchable thirst for sport? Get up to speed with the day's biggest sports stories with the talkSPORT hit. Crammed full of the latest team news, big match previews, and discussing the day's hottest topics.
Been improving week in, week out.
Plus, get all the latest results and full fan reaction to the biggest events in world sport.
It's a wonderful goal!
Satisfy your thirst for sports news with the talkSPORT hit. Subscribe now on Acast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.